the seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed Friday night, so you all know what that means. It's that time again. Wee bit of time travelling going on. It's the Bustalgia Celtic Years Tour continuing, and tonight it is an eventful season, to say the least, from an outsider looking in. If you looked at all the crazy events this season, you'd think Celtic must have imploded. We lost our best striker for the transfer window. We had all sorts of injuries. We underwhelmed in the transfer market, missed out on some high-profile targets. Our manager left. The sacked Hibs manager took over. Rangers beat us for the first time in about a decade. God knows how long it had been. So you would have thought everything must have been going wrong at Celtic, but no. The Celtic Express would not be stopped because there was still a treble at the end of this season. What a crazy season ahead. It is the Treble Treble 2018-2019. I'm very much looking forward to getting into this one. And as you can see, the original team is back together. The time-travelling team on the bus. It is Russell Boyce and Liam alongside me. Russell, how you doing, mate?
Oh, good, mate. All jamming. I've even set up my desk so it looks like I'm still in the attic. Do you know what I mean? Keep everyone happy. So, aye, all good here, mate. How's you?
Yeah, all good, man. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, man. So, Liam, the Canada favourite Tim, the wise man of the bus. How you doing, my friend? Saw you last night. I just seen you here again, mate. I know.
I'm doing this regularly. I'm still upset I missed the Scott Brown one last week, but just like everybody else, I really enjoy listening to it and catch up anyway, But I had some opinions in that. But what a season this was, huh? I can't wait to let's just get into it, yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
so many
on the top.
On
the topic of the Scott Brown thing, obviously last week there was one game in particular we talked about where he really, really pushed him to the limit. And today happens to be the 4-year anniversary of it. The one when Morelos elbowed him, Kent took a punch at him, Andy Halliday had an absolute meltdown at full time. Today is the 4-year anniversary of that, and it happens to fall, of course, in the Treble Treble season, which we'll be talking about tonight. But before we go any further, folks, I'll just remind everybody, of course, to do all that good stuff that we like on the bus. So, of course, if you're brand new at the bus, only just discovered us, and hit that subscribe button, we'd appreciate it massively. And, of course, remember to hit the bell notification button so that you get reminded when we go live and put a show on YouTube. Also, of course, hit that like button, helps us out massively. The algorithm pushes the bus into people's recommended videos. And of course, get involved in the comments tonight. Once again, there is a poll tonight in the comments, and it all regards the announcement after the cup final this season, the infamous television interview that Peter Lawwell did, where he talked about the offering Neil Lennon the job in the shower. So simply three options. What was your genuine reaction? Were you delighted? Were you indifferent? Or were you angry? That's all I want to know, just to gauge what the fans were thinking at the time. And of course, if you wish to share the link of the Boise Bus, then by all means, please do so. And of course, check out our great sponsors at piesports.com. Tell them the bus sent you and use the code BUS1888. Get yourself a nice, tasty, delicious discount on your order. Now, guys, a wee quick bit of trivia before we go any further. If you watched the video that I sent you for the goals, you guys definitely already know the video, so they'll know the answer. So this one's probably more for the viewers tonight, because I have a funny feeling you two guys will get these answers pretty quickly. There's only 5 answers in this one, only 5. So it's all about our series of games with Rosenborg at this time, because we actually played them 6 times in 18 months. It was quite bizarre. We played them, of course, the season before in the qualifiers for the Champions League. We got them again in the Champions League qualifiers for this season, and then we drew them again in the Europa League group stages. Just couldn't escape them. So over those 6 matches that we had with them, we had 5 different goal scorers. Simply tell me who the 5 different goal scorers were. And for a bonus point, if you can name the Rosenborg goal scorer as well, and you know who the Rosenborg goal scorer is. Everybody remembers who this wee guy is. But yeah, that's all I'm looking for tonight. Just who the Celtic goal scorers against Rosenborg were over that 18-month series that we had against them, 6 matches in a short span of time. Must be a record for 2 teams in European competition to play each other that many times in 18 months. But yeah, that's all I'm looking for tonight. But yeah, now that we've got all of that out of the way, all the house cleaning and so on, we can crack on with it. So, guys, let's get straight into it then. Summer of 2018. This is actually an era that we've not actually landed in yet on Bustalgia. We've not actually landed. We never did the 2018 World Cup. We haven't done that one, so we've not actually covered this time period. So yeah, let's get started with the usual that we do. Also, we take a look at the big football winners to start. And the Champions League final. I forgot this one was an absolute humdinger. This had everything going for it. This was the final in Kiev, where Real Madrid beat Liverpool 3-1. Many things happened in this game of note. This is a game when Loris Karius suffered a concussion early in the game, which of course led to him rolling the ball right out to Karim Benzema, who scored the first goal. Later in the game, due to his concussion as well, he fumbled a shot in from Gareth Bale to make it 3-1. In between that, Gareth Bale scores arguably the best goal ever scored in a Champions League final, the overhead kick from outside the area. It's also the game when Sergio Ramos does Sergio Ramos things, and he's just the absolute bastard that he is, and injures Mo Salah, dislocated shoulder. He goes off injured. And that actually resulted in the next year when Liverpool did win the Champions League. The Liverpool fans, they took that well. And they were, like, oh, get up here, Sergio Ramos, Mo Salah's finally got the trophy. And it's like, well, Sergio Ramos has got multiple Champions League trophies, World Cup and European Championships, and quite a few La Liga titles. I think he can live with missing out on that one. And yeah, it was also the game as well where Gareth Bale, at the end of the game, did a very sort of low energy, no really asked, nobody cares type interview, despite scoring, as I say, arguably the best goal ever seen in the Champions League final. And it was also Cristiano Ronaldo's last ever game for Real Madrid. Wow, there was a lot going on in that Champions League final, Russell. A lot.
Yeah, there was. It's funny that Bale gets that mad, I don't know, reputation, like he wasn't. Did he ever fulfill his potential in that? I'm like, what else are you meant to do? I think he won about 3 or 4 Champions Leagues when he was at Real Madrid and scored that goal. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I just think it's bizarre, the narrative about Bale. I think it's because everyone knows he's better at golf than he is at football. They just can't handle it.
Was it Wales, Real Madrid, golf? Remember that?
Wales, golf.
Real
Wales,
Madrid, in
golf,
that order.
Real Madrid, in that order. I thought it was
with the banner, that's right. Oh, crazy time, because it was a really strange one because he obviously went there and Ronaldo was already the big boy there, but Ronaldo was leaving that summer. He went off to Juventus, Liam. But that final, as I say, when I was putting the notes together for it, I was just like, Jesus Christ, that game had a lot more going on than I can remember. It's the game that also is forever tarnished Loris Karius, as this terrible keeper. But yeah, he did play on with a concussion. And, we'd hear about Chris Sutton, going on about things with head knocks and stuff like that, the importance of it. You saw what he did with the first goal with Benzema. Benzema's literally standing right in front of him. He just goes and rolls it right to his feet, and he just taps it out of the net. And it was just like, because he was dazed and confused. But a mental final, Liam.
I think the term raffle winner comes to mind, just to quickly get that in.
I
think he is a raffle winner.
I think it was, go back to Ramos, I remember seeing it afterwards, somebody was showing it was Ramos that elbowed him in the head.
Yeah.
And that's what he figured led to the concussion. And then that other one, just a sheer act of brutality against Salah. You just seen it. He went down, he tried to pull his arm out of socket. And then Liverpool just didn't even look like scoring after that because they just looked really one dimension. All their heads went down after Salah went off. He was the big hope, the big prize. He was going to be their saviour. And then, went to shit.
It did. But yeah, as I say, that Gareth Bale overhead kick is... That, here we go, guys. Here's a quick question. That or the Zidane volley at Hampden was better goal?
Oh, everyone will say Zidane's because it was at Hampden. Bale's is far, far better in my opinion. I think that's a joke.
An overhead kick outside the box? Mental.
Best one I've seen since Trevor Sinclair for QPR.
That's right, he actually did. Trevor Sinclair did score one.
Liam
Zidane or Bale. Yeah, that's a good Celtic man.
What was that? Sorry?
Zidane or Bale, the best goal in the Champions League final, Zidane's volley or Bale's
overhead kick. I remember 70s watching Kevin Keegan scored one for Hamburg and it was a worldie. And then it was like offside, and it was like, that's the first time I'd ever seen anybody on television doing anything like that. First time I'd seen it and it was off, but it was still amazing. So I'd get to Bale.
As for the two exceptional goals, both for Real Madrid as well, and Champions League. That was number 13, I believe, out of the 14 Champions League triumphs. It's all right for some, into that many Champions Leagues. Jesus Christ, or European Cups, if you like, go with the old term for it as well. But yeah, also Atletico Madrid picked up the Europa League that summer, so both European trophies went back to the same city. That's got to be quite a rare accolade for that to happen. That kind of looking through the history books. That's probably not happened too many times, but Atletico Madrid trounced Marseille 3-0 in the final, which was held in Lyon. Griezmann scored 2 and Gabi scored the other one. But yeah, that means we would have got a All Madrid Super Cup final to start the next season, because that's the Champions League winner plays the Europa League winner. But yeah, the two Madrid teams picked up the silverware in Europe. And a quick note as well, we've got a brand new YouTube member, guys. Les Watts. Just become a YouTuber. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, mate.
Yeah,
I'm sure Leslie's name used to pop up all the time.
Yeah, he's back, mate. He's back with a bang.
He's back.
As Tom Commentator would say.
We've all been away. And we're back.
Aye. Welcome along, Les. Yes, indeed. Yes, thank you for taking up a membership. And say if you want to be like Les and obviously take up a membership as well, then by all means we appreciate it. None of our content will ever be behind any paywalls or on Patreon or anything like that.
Never say never, Phil. $5 a show.
Oh Jesus. That's slippery.
It's a bit of banter. Oh, it's a bit of banter. We'll get all caught up. I'm joking. I wouldn't charge anyone to watch us talk shite.
Calm, he was just kidding. He was kidding. It's all right. It's calm. So what else happened around the continent? Premier League, it was Manchester City that won the title that year. They absolutely romped to the title that year. I thought this was the one where they pipped Liverpool by like a point, but no, it's not that one. That was the next season. This is one where they finished on 100 points exactly with a plus 79 goal difference. Second place was Jose Mourinho's Man United. They were 19 points behind, though, with a plus 40 goal difference. Although Mourinho has said, in the circumstances, he feels getting second place with that Man United team is one of his biggest achievements in football. But yeah, they were up against a juggernaut Manchester City team at that point. They're still a juggernaut to this day, to be fair. They won the title, I think it was 4 out of the last 5 they've won. Liverpool have won 1 of the titles. Yeah, they're a machine at the moment. The FA Cup, Chelsea picked up the trophy there, beating Man United in the final. Eden Hazard scored the only goal in the first half from a penalty kick. And in the English League Cup, the one trophy Arsene Wenger never got his hands on when he was Arsenal manager domestically was the League Cup. He did get to the final that year, but Man City were awaiting them, trashed them 3-0, and it would be Arsene Wenger's last cup final in charge of Arsenal. He'd be replaced by Unai Emery that summer. Didn't quite go according to plan neither. They seem to be back on track to some degree under Arteta, but still a tough run in ahead for Arsenal, even though they're in the driving seat just now. It's looking now, will they get across the line first? We shall see. As in Scotland, we've covered the double treble season, so no prizes for guessing there. Celtic won absolutely everything in Scotland in 2017-18. We won the title 9 points ahead of the second place team, who wasn't Rangers. It was Aberdeen who were the second place team. And we beat Motherwell in both cup finals 2-0. The Scottish Cup final in particular, massive highlight, that one. Thoroughly enjoyed that day. Beautiful sunny day at Hampden. Also happened on the same day as a certain royal wedding was going on, and there was a rousing rendition of Shove Your Royal Wedding Up Your Arse ringing round Hampden for a lot of the game. Good memories, good times. But yeah, we wrapped up the double treble in style, which also was history in itself because no team in Scotland had ever done that. Rangers came very close in 1994 till Craig Brewster popped up and denied them with Dundee United winning the cup in 1994. But yeah, we became the first Scottish team. So right there, if that run had stopped there, we'd already made history. But then it was like, why do we go? We've came this far. Let's go a little bit further. Let's go and get another treble, which we're about to obviously be talking about tonight. But yeah, at that point in time, we'd already made Scottish football history by winning a double treble. And even that, world football, there's not many teams that have done double trebles. Treble treble, even more rare. But doubles are a double treble is a pretty rare accolade as well. So we're in a good position at this point in time. And of course, around the continent, no real surprises in any of the other major leagues. In Spain, it was Barcelona. In Italy, it was Juventus. In Germany, it was Bayern Munich. France, it was PSG. Netherlands, PSV Eindhoven. And in Portugal, it was Porto. So yeah, no surprise winners there. And there was a World Cup in 2018 as well, held in Russia, very controversially, but I thought it was quite a good World Cup. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Football standard was fantastic. And this, of course, was the final where France beat Croatia, a country that gets a lot of mentions on this show. Croatian internationals seems to go a long way around here. But no, Juranovic wasn't in that Croatia squad. It was a little bit before his time. And yeah, France beat Croatia in the final. To this day here in Scotland, Mario Mandzukic is still thanked every day for his services to football, for the goal he scored in the semi-final to stop England from getting there. So thank you very much, Mario Mandzukic. Your services are very much appreciated this side of the border. So what was going on in the world of transfers in summer 2018? Some big hitters here, some big moves. Now, I mentioned earlier on, guys, that was Ronaldo's last game for Real Madrid before he moved to Juventus. But that wasn't even the biggest summer transfer headline. The big one was Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe, who a season before had joined PSG on a loan deal with an obligation to buy. Now, PSG were seeing through that obligation because they signed Neymar a year before, and because of financial fair play, they couldn't sign Mbappe for the price that they would have had to pay for him. So they did a little workaround with Monaco. We'll take him on loan for a year and then we'll pay you in the next summer. Best part, I think it was about 180 million euros. And given on top of that, a year before, they spent about 200 million euros on Neymar. I mean, I always find it hilarious that they've done this workaround because whenever a team gets caught, Russell, with the financial fair play stuff, what's the worst thing that happens to them? They get a fine. They fine them. So why would PSG have just not been like, fuck it, we'll just sign them? What are you going to do? Fine us?
Some punishment, that.
Oh, I know.
It's funny, though. I mean, the only folk that couldn't deal with getting fined, well, we know who that was. Do you know what I mean? They were the ones that went, shit, it wasn't actually our money. Whereas these people, they're sitting there going, the reason we could pay £200 million for Neymar or 180 million for Mbappe is because we've got unlimited resources. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So they're not gonna fuck, mate. They're just laughing.
No. So that was the obscene obligation to buy deal where they brought Mbappe in. So they added him to their arsenal to try and win the Champions League, which PSG, I believe, are still waiting for. And am I right in saying they've actually been knocked out of this year's competition as well? I think they got knocked out by Bayern in the last round. So another year goes by and no Champions League for Paris Saint-Germain. Cristiano Ronaldo, he moved to Juventus. I said the plan there, obviously, was him to go to Juve and try and get them back onto the top pedestal in European football, but that wouldn't materialise as well over the next few years. The last time Juve did win a European trophy is still the 1996 Champions League triumph. I always associate Juve with such like unrivaled success, but European-wise, they're not. Like AC Milan have won more Champions League in the last 2 decades than Juventus have. It's quite astounding, but Juventus are always like the dominant team in Italy. They always, they win the most titles and so on, but they can't transfer it into European success. So the Ronaldo move didn't quite go. But if I remember right as well, Netflix had also started a sort of fly-on-the-wall documentary with Juventus around about the time of this transfer going through. So it was a ratings winner for them. It just so happened that in the summer that they started this Netflix documentary. Yeah, Ronaldo signed. So I'm sure that got them quite a few ratings, but yeah, didn't get them the big trophies that they wanted over the next few years, other than Serie A titles, which they win on the regular. Chelsea, they spent pretty big. They were bringing in Spanish keeper Kepa, who's still there to this day. In fact, played against Scotland through the week. He's been ousted as the first-team keeper by Edouard Mendy, but I think due to injury, he's been back in goal for Chelsea recently. And they also signed Brazilian midfielder turned Italian international Jorginho, Brazilian-born, but obviously plays for the Italian national team. They signed him from Napoli. He is now at Arsenal these days. After helping Leicester to win the title in 2016. Riyad Mahrez finally made a choice of where he was going after that spell. He chose Manchester City that summer. Liverpool brought in Alisson Becker, who's currently still their goalkeeper to this day, Brazilian international from AS Roma, and they also brought in Naby Keita from RB Leipzig. Real Madrid would sign highly promising Brazilian youngster Vinicius Junior, who of course has still got to this day, and they also brought in Thibaut Courtois from Chelsea. Man United would add Shakhtar Donetsk's Brazilian midfielder Fred to their ranks that summer, and he's still in Man United's team to this day. He's had that sort of hot and cold relationship with Man U, where sometimes he looks the part, then other times it's like, this guy's a raffle winner. How the hell did he get a contract playing football? Everton, remember these deals as well. At Everton, they brought in Rich Arlison for big bucks from Watford that summer. Rich Arlison, always one I'm not that convinced by. I'm amazed that he's like, in the World Cup just past here, he's like Brazil's number 9. You think in the years, Liam, are like Brazil's centre forwards, Ronaldo, Romario, these type of names, Rich Arlison. He's decent, but he's no upper echelons of Brazilian strikers, is he?
No, he's not a household name, is he? It's nobody running about with Rich Arlison on the back of their jersey or wanting that, and you don't see him showing up in the Nike adverts or anything like that. So yeah, I think he's one that slipped through the cracks, and maybe they're hitting a wee bit of dodgy form. Who knows? Vinny Junior was a quality signing.
Well, he's just going from strength to strength now. He scored the winner in the last season's Champions League final, so he is just he's going to be a superstar. He showed in the World Cup there as well, we obviously played him as well in the Champions League for Real Madrid at the start of this season. So yeah, he is a player. And here's an interesting one as well, the sort of final transfer headline that I plucked from that summer is just a year before this player was on loan at Aberdeen. James Maddison, he transferred from Norwich to Leicester for, I believe, the guts of about £20 million. James Maddison, I always rated him as a player when he was up here, and it was like, man, he is. I remember him, Russell, scoring a belter, a free kick in the last minute against Rangers at Pittodrie. I fucking scream on Warburton was in charge of Rangers. Yeah, he looked a player. He did.
What season was that? That would have been 16,
Rogers'
17.
first season, 16-17. Yep.
I remember that well. It was a belter. He looked good, man. He got recalled, and I think he had a really good season for Norwich. And then, of course, a good season in the Championship equates to being a £20 million player. It's mad, eh?
I know. He's still at Leicester to this day.
He is a good player. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, now because whilst we all panic if we say a Celtic player could be worth anything even close to that, we'd all go, oof, well, that's a bit wild. We now kind of go, well, Maddison proved he was worth just under 20 million from the Championship. I wonder how many Celtic players could do that if you got your right value. I'm sure plenty would. So it's just interesting when you see those sort of valuations. It seems wild, but I never ever doubt, basically, is what I'm saying, is that these clubs have that money to spend because they fucking do, right? If Leicester City's can afford that for a Championship player, don't be too quick just to part with your assets to these clubs, because they can dig as deep as you'd be amazed how deep they can deep.
Oh yeah.
And I think sometimes you need to challenge these clubs sometimes, just because it's Southampton bidding and it's £10 million. We're lost in this this place where we think, oh, Southampton bidding 10 million, fair enough, because it's shitey Southampton. They've probably got 100 million quid sitting in the bank. Fuck them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the parachute payments that you get from just dropping down the divisions is astounding. Absolutely astounding. The money that some teams in the Championship have got, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Just from a wee spell in the Premiership. They have one season in the Premier League, and the money that they can earn from that can last them the next 5 years or so. It's ridiculous, the money that gets paid out there. But yeah, Leicester, a team that we will no doubt be talking about at some point tonight, because they play a slight role in the season that's coming up for us. But yeah, they did splash the cash and bring in James Maddison that summer. So what was going on in a bit of the musical headlines and so on at the time the season kicked off? So we actually kicked off the season the 4th of August 2018 with a 3-1 victory over Kenny Miller's Livingston. He was the player manager at that point in time. He did that bizarre thing where he started the game and then he took himself off and stood on the sideline with a bib on but still wearing his kit. But we beat them 3-1. So this is before Martindale came in and made it a wee bit awkward for us whenever we play Livingston. But yeah, we beat them 3-1 on the opening day. Drake was number 1 in the UK singles chart. The number 1 album was a soundtrack from a film. It was for the Mamma Mia sequel, Here We Go Again. But that wasn't the number 1 film at the box office. It was Mission Impossible Fallout that was the number 1 film that week at the box office when the season kicked off. And as for the Tea in the Park lineup, well, there was no Tea in the Park because it got cancelled after 2016. It's now Transmit. Transmit is a new big Scottish festival every summer at this point in time. So, talk about headline acts. This is a strong lineup. Russell, you were talking another week about your formations and stuff like that when it came to the. When I said, that's a strong lineup. Oh, yeah, are we 3-5-2 there? How's this for a. They did what it looks like 2 weekends in a row. It was like they did one weekend, then they were back the next weekend. It was when I went on Wikipedia and looked at the dates. So they had 5 nights of like headline acts on the main stage, and those were the Stereophonics, the Arctic Monkeys, the Killers, Queen and Adam Lambert, and Liam Gallagher headlined Transmit that year. Russell, do you remember anything about that Liam Gallagher set performance?
Being there.
You were there? Well, there you go then.
Tell us about it. I got half a digit off some wee kid, and I shouldn't have done it. I was away with it, man. Who cares? And there was a boy next to me when Liam was about to come out. He did a really long walkout for Effing in the Bushes, and there was a boy next to me, but he was obviously like anorexic, like really anorexic. And in my infinite wisdom, which never ended in disaster, I just went, look, mate, you can barely see, and he was really skinning bones, like really, really skinning bones. Mm-hmm. I went, the one thing I did know is I'd be able to lift him. So I went, come on, you up my shoulders. So he was up for when Rock and Roll Star and that got played. And I'd kind of forgot it had happened because I was away with it. Yeah. And then as we walked out, he squeezed my arm and he went, I'll never forget that moment for the rest of my life, mate. Thanks so much for doing that. And it always stuck with me. That was the best bit about that gig. And I was like, I thought it was so nice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. But that's
well, that's 2 hours later. He said that to us. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, but this is Liam now out of the BDI era, which you've talked about before, saying, see if he just was like just Liam Gallagher for the start instead of BDI, like he would have sold a lot more in terms of what because Noel did No Gallagher and his High Flying Bird, so he kept his name attached to it. But when Liam did BDI, but obviously now he's going to just be
basic marketing.
Keep
basic
it simple.
Marketing. Basic marketing. It's not even. I think it shows as well with Liam. I think he was probably more shy than you would actually think. The fact he didn't want to put his name on it in the first place because I'm not really a musician. I'm just a singer. Can't he put my name on it because I don't really write songs? It's like, just fucking put your name on it, mate. Watch this. And then, of course, he did it 5 years later, and well, the rest is history. Do you know what I mean?
It is indeed. The other acts that did perform at this Transmit Festival, he said Tea in the Park there. That used to that conditioned via Transmit. It was, let's have a wee look at the Script, Franz Ferdinand, Texas, the Cortinas, Jerry Cinnamon, The Darkness, Jessie J, the Script, and the View front man and Celtic fan, Kyle Faulkner. As for Glastonbury in 2018, there was no Glastonbury in 2018. They had a year off that year as well. I don't know what was behind that. It was just one of those giving the fields a rest for a year, or if there was something. Because one of the years we did it, they didn't do Glastonbury because the Olympics were on in London. So, yeah, the 2018 decided to take a year off. So, yeah, Transmit was the big festival to be at. Maybe that's a reason as well why Transmit did 2 weekends back-to-back rather than just one weekend. Maybe with Glastonbury not being on, it was like, yeah, we'll take advantage of this and utilize
Absolutely.
It.
That's just opportunism. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Clever.
Yeah, that's got. I would explain it because it was weird on Wikipedia, and I was like, wait a minute, 5 nights. Then I looked at the dates, and they're like a week apart. I thought, right, okay, that makes sense. That'll be it. Glastonbury wasn't on, so yeah, it was just the. So I just saw some of the comments that just caught my eye there, but I won't bring that one up. I think you'll see it, Russell. But yeah, we'll move on now to the old pre-season roundup. What was going on? This is a very, very controversial pre-season. This is the one, before we came on, you were talking about it, where I think this is kind of like the poster for how not to do it. We talk about investment, why we always bang the drum and harp on about how it's so important to back the manager and so on. This pre-season is probably the one that's the poster for how not to do it. If you had to have like a user's guide of this is not how you conduct a transfer window, this would be it. Now, of course, on paper, from the outside looking in, Liam, you'd think, oh, that's a big, Celtic are really putting the foot down here. They also paid the £9 million to sign Odsonne Edouard because we took him on loan for a year. And there was a deal in place when that loan deal was agreed that if we wanted to make it permanent, it would be £9 million. I think Russell said before that's what you would call ring-fenced money, where when you agree that deal back in when the loan is agreed, that £9 million is already there. But yeah, we did spend it. So after a year of Odsonne Edouard, and obviously Moussa Dembele's still here at this point in time, pretty exciting because he did have a good, solid first season. He obviously really put himself on the map with the goal at Ibrox, Liam, where we're 10 men. He bends it into the far corner. Fantastic scenes. The last game where we got the full Broom Loan stand. It was a moment in time. But yeah, when you initially see that like we're pushing the boat out here, this is now our record signing. You're like, but this is going to be a good window. We're really going to go for it here, isn't it?
I thought we were moving in the right direction. So what was not to be excited about at that point? They were hearing, like, I can't even say I was hearing any rumblings in the background of that Brendan might have been unhappy or Dembele, or there was stuff behind the scenes. It just looked like, all right, finally we've got our club. Our house is in order and we're doing stuff right. And I thought, okay, $9 million for one player for PSG, that's intent. You're making your intentions. We're not playing around anymore. And so that was my opinion then at that point. It looked like, all right, we're off to a really, really good start. That shows we're going in the right direction.
Aye, it definitely does. Because, Russell, and it is still a record to this day. It did take us a long time to beat the record, which, of course, was Chris Sutton in the year 2000. It took us a wee while. But, we keep on saying about these are the type of marquee type of signs we should be trying to do every season. I know a lot of fans go, oh, no, we'll go bankrupt like Rangers and so forth. But, finances come out, the money's there. I don't think there's any harm in going to £6-7 million players, just one every summer, just that real marquee name.
I don't think there's any harm in using this summer and the transfer activity at Celtic as a huge reason to keep the pressure up this summer that's coming round. I think they're so eerily similar. I think you've got two guys now. Brendan Rodgers is now a rat, right? Let's get that right. But going into this summer, he was the Messiah. He was of Angie's ilk. This guy was releasing autobiographies through the Celtic channel, not even having them written by anyone else for him. He was writing them himself. And he was literally God to a lot of people. This was the biggest attachment we had with a manager since O'Neill. This was the guy. And everything was there. 2 record turnovers ever. Sounds familiar? Remember that 112 we've been talking about recently? And by the way, just to clarify, I couldn't be more well versed in the difference of turnover and profit, right? I could not be more well versed in what the differences are between the two. But let me tell you something, the more turnover you're making, okay, the chances are you're doing that with an eye on the profits. And if you're not, that'd be a pretty flawed business model. And it's funny because the one thing we can say is as Celtic are about to announce this sort of turnover, the cash in the bank, for example, is at record levels as well. So let's get that right. I think we go into this summer, we need to be looking at it absolutely like we went in with it. Like, not the same way we went into the 2018-19 summer. I'm with Liam. I thought fucking Edward signed, 9 million quid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, I don't know if I'd have paid that for him. Do you know what I mean? Because he'd been on loan that first year and he couldn't really get in the team that much.
Yep.
He wasn't, and I thought that goal at Ibrox has fucking won him a watch. Do you know what I mean? I didn't remember, and I thought if he's 9 million, let's have it. Do you know what I mean? Because that means, please sir, can we have some more? It turns out that I think that they knew Dembele was going to go. I think there's so much about this summer that's unwritten, and obviously some of it rumour, and then some of the truth is in the middle of everything that happened. I think Celtic were acutely aware Edouard was going to be a very good investment, full stop, right? I think they trusted Rodgers' judgment on that. When Rodgers went, it's nothing about what he's going to do for the team. It was just about, you think we'll get 20 million for him? You'll get 20 for him in a few years. Brilliant, do it. That's flipping money. Do you know what I mean? He's came with a guarantee. We thought he was to be Musa's partner because Griffiths, by the way, again, we'll talk about when we get into the season because, I don't know, he was outstanding the first half of the season. But anyway, he was playing lesser than he had been. Year on year, you could tell his fitness wasn't up to what Rodgers' requirement was. And to be honest, with the standard that had went up so high from the rest of the team, he was being a wee bit left behind in that regard. Now, I thought the Edward thing is, fuck me, that's now we're going to go 2 up. It's going to be him and Dembele. Let's get this show on the road. There is no way, when I look back at that signing of Edward, he was ever signed by Celtic to partner Musa and Dembele. Musa was always going. Always going.
Yep.
And unless Champions League money came in for the third time.
Yeah.
But on that, they were not tooling the manager up to do that this summer. It was you get Edward, which was already, as you said earlier, a deal they had to kind of see through if they were going to buy him. So he had to be bought early in the window. Same as Jota, same as Cameron Carter-Vickers. You can't wait till deadline day to sign him. But once that money was spent, it was a case of, for the rest, we'll wait and see. And waiting and seeing means we're going to wait and see if we qualify or not. Now, that's mad when a manager's earned you over 100 million turnover. Not profit. But when a guy has the Celtic fans that are buying season tickets and having waiting lists again, when a guy's already qualified you through it twice, he deserved to be tooled up for this Champions League. He'd earned it.
Yes.
They didn't, and their fallback was, we'll sell Dembele anyway. So they knew their 20 million, let's call it 20 million pound jackpot was coming in anyway. The other aspect of that Dembele departure is there was an inevitability about it from their point of view, because I think Celtic had got wind. Well, they knew, in fact, they did have wind, that Brendan was for the off to China.
Yeah, that's the story. Yep, that was at the time, yep.
And this is why Dembele started kicking and screaming, because if Brendan can promise me I can leave Celtic because it suits Brendan, because he's going to take me to China with him, how come I'm not allowed to go because Brendan shat the bed and didn't want to go to China? How come I can't now go back to France? Which, that means you've not got my interest at heart, you've only got Brendan's interest at heart. That's Dembele's attitude to it, I believe. But either way, the Edward signing, just to go back to that, I think was a lot of smoke and mirrors for many reasons. Not all, by the way, Celtic's doing. I think once they knew Dembele was going anyway, that definitely forces the hand that you're going to sign that player. But also they did not add to that.
Remember, Dembele's stock was really high because he was tearing it up with French under-21 at the time. And we talked about guys like Kylian Mbappe and all that coming out of that squad, and all of them just sort of peaking at the same time. So you imagine Dembele, he'd sort of want to be France because he's been at Fulham since he was like 16 or 17. And so I think he wanted to be part of that resurgence of French football again. It had happened, coming up for the World Cup as well.
Aye. Well, funny enough, when you mentioned under-21s there, those were Edward, didn't he end up playing for that under-21 side for, I don't know how long it was. He was like 23-year-old and he was still turning out for them. But probably still is, probably still is there. And also, I remember you saying there about the signing Edward. I can remember after Dembele left, we went into that season. as we're heading towards the January window, so many fans on Twitter were always saying things like, "Oh, we've not replaced Dembele yet," and it's like, I hate to break it to you, but we have replaced Dembele. Edouard was the replacement for Dembele, but I think a lot of people never twigged to them because we had the guy on loan for a year, and then when you sign him full time, it didn't really feel like a new signing. It's like, no, that was the plan all along. If Dembele goes, this is the guy that's going to replace him. But from watching that montage of goals that I sent you over the recap of this season, see some of the goals that Edouard scored. It's off. He was absolutely phenomenal this season, absolutely amazing. So he was definitely a hell of a
Well, it had to be. He was filling big boots.
Yeah, he was.
Let's get it right here. We shouldn't be surprised that you've signed a good player to replace Dembele. Come on. This is a guy overwhelmingly voted for on Bustalgia.
That's
what
right,
what was the percentage? 92% to 8?
Something
So
like that.
I'd like to think that the guy who came in could kick a ball. This was no mere mortal he was replacing. It was someone who I think was a top player. And again, you get players of that ilk, and suddenly when you start complimenting these guys with other players of a similar ilk, they don't have that hankering to leave quite as much.
No, that's true. You sign quality players, and then it shows the team are operating like a big team. It attracts more players. It makes players want to stay because you see we are operating like a big side. So, yeah, players of that ilk will definitely help do that. But, of course, the other big story transfer-wise that summer was, and we talked about it not too long ago with the almost Celtic players one that we did. Obviously John McGinn, we went over that whole saga. This was the summer we missed out on him, but we didn't just miss out on him. There was also an Italian fullback from Sporting Lisbon called Cristiano Piccini, who by all accounts was apparently on a private jet set to head to Celtic and at the 11th hour, Liam, for reasons, probably well-shaped reasons. It obviously didn't go ahead, and that was another one because a right back was definitely something that Brendan Rodgers had identified. Later in the season, we will make another. Well, I don't know if we necessarily made an approach for Timothy Castagne, but the name was doing the rounds as a January window approach because Brendan Rodgers identified that Mikael Lustig was kind of getting into the sort of the twilight of his career. Probably needed a new right back, but yeah, we missed out on also Cristiano Piccini. But don't worry, do you know who we brought in though to make good on that one? We missed out on John McGinn, so what did we do? We signed Yusuf Malumbu on a free transfer on deadline day, I believe it was. And in the need of a full back, we didn't get Cristiano Piccini, but don't worry, Emilio Ezagiri will come back for a year, so we signed him on a free transfer as well that summer. And other deals that we did as well. So we missed out on McGinn, Piccini and so on. We brought in Benkovic on loan, who naturally was very, very good for us. Benkovic is in that club now where he's in this sort of Paddy Roberts club. When transfer windows come along, people are like, bring him home. He was a good player, but he was a bit injury prone. But I like Benkovic. He was a good one. We actually went for him before when he was at Dynamo Zagreb, before he signed for Leicester. I think he was one that was on our radar before. But yeah, that's as we brought in Benkovic.
We'll talk about him as well, because there's a guy who's playing in the EPL right now, and there's Benkovic. I'll tell you which one was better that season, and it was not the boy who's playing in the EPL right now who costs £13 million. Fuck me.
Christopher Agia. I'm intrigued to hear that one. Intrigued because Agia has a few moments along this season, but we'll get that later on. Another big signing as well. I say big signing. He was at the World Cup. He looked like a bit of a star, a superstar in the making. Daniel Arzani was the youngest player to turn out for Australia at a World Cup. He came on, he looked the part, he had that Patrick Robertsness about him, skillful player, got you off your seat. Went to Man City, they loaned him straight to us as part of the whole City group agreement. So you're like, oh, this could be a new Paddy Roberts style signing. He literally plays 20 minutes for us at Dens Park, gets injured and never plays again.
Another downgrade though. It is a downgrade.
Yeah, it's another loan as well, just going to the City group, getting on the phone to them and going, any players we can take on loan? That's what we got. But yeah, we ended up playing 20 minutes for us in the end at Dens Park, gets injured, and yeah, never ever plays again, sadly. And heading out of Celtic that window in the revolving doors, Moussa Dembele left just a day before the transfer window closed. very, very late in the window after we failed to qualify for the Champions League, which we'll get on to in the second part of the show as to why that happened. Also, Nadia Chifte left. Nobody really cared about that one. Eric Sviatchenko went to Michelin, where I believe he still is now. And Stuart Armstrong also departed for Southampton after that whole signing an extra year and getting $7 million and so on. But yeah, he went to Southampton. Charlie Musonda was meant to be on an 18-month loan, similar to what Patrick Roberts did when he initially joined us, but the loan was cut short after 6 months and he was sent back to Chelsea due to lack of game time. But hey, he's always got that assist against Zenit St. Petersburg from the season before. That was a great moment, great pass. But other than that, the Celtic career, nah, nothing at all there. And some of our youngsters like Jack Aitchison and Calvin Miller went out on loan. Also, of note, when it comes to spending from the budget that summer, Celtic obviously spent in the region, I believe, of £4 million to upgrade the floodlight system to the LED ones that we have now. It was also to meet UEFA requirements, and like many teams around the continent do have, the lights can be programmed to create this, obviously, the light show. They would be called the disco lights. We often get panned for them and criticised for them, and as I say, many top teams around the continent have got them, so why do we always get criticised for them? I don't know. Maybe it's because that season we missed out in Champions League and it was like, oh, you could have spent $4 million on a player. But at the end of the day, Celtic did it as well as to meet requirements for UEFA and so forth. But yeah, the disco lights are obviously still going strong to this day. And this is the first season that we have got them. Now, what's going on the other side of the city? Because for the third season in a row for Brendan Rodgers, he's up against a different manager. He's seen off Mark Warburton, seen off Graham Murray, seen off Pedro Caixinha, seen off Graham Murray again. So Murray's been around the block twice, and this time they brought in Steven Gerrard. To me, instantly, as soon as I heard they were going for him, my first thought was they've gone for a name appointment rather than a manager of actual substance. Obviously, there was a bit of history between Steven Gerrard and Brendan Rodgers. He managed them at Liverpool. There was a very public falling out between the two. Gerrard wanted a 2-year extension and Rodgers only willing to offer a 1 year. So there's a bit of a falling out there. So there's a bit of bad blood. It felt to me like it was a headline grabbing one, and that the headline's already written. If the protege can come in and oust this guy who has been winning trophy after trophy and sweeping up, you know, the Sky TVs and the BT Sports, you know, the ones that are really pro Premier League, this is a story that they will just eat up. They will love it. Ultimately, yeah, it did get a lot more eyes on Scottish football at the time because regardless of what we may think of Steven Gerrard, he has a name. He's definitely a big name in the world of football. But yeah, Steven Gerrard came in. And of course, Rangers, being Rangers, they had to dress up somewhere. This, of course, is the summer where they decided that we're not going to get the full allocation anymore. The broom won't stand. And they tried to say that due to Steven Gerrard's appointment and a demand for season tickets, they were obviously going to change it now that Celtic would only get that little corner.
Here's the thing, though. Yeah. Which bowled back their manager more? The one with all the trophies or the one that never managed a game in his life? There's the first takeaway point. At the end of the day, it might not have been £9 million Gerrard got to spend on a player, but in terms of what tools Rangers could give him, they gave him the kitchen sink. Brendan Rodgers was given a spanner, and that's the reality. So as much as it was great to go, well, it's the master against the apprentice, we should have been looking then and going, well, how come their apprentice and this wee diddy manager, this rookie manager, that was the terminology used all the time. Mind that, Liam. Everyone was calling him the rookie manager. Well, at least their club, new whatever, gave him everything they possibly could afford and more to give it a go. Whereas we wouldn't even give our manager, who had brought all the success that we boasted about and we wanted to see him carry on, we wouldn't even give him a healthy percentage of everything that was in our locker. I think that's a bad sign, that when you see that.
That is. They gave him that season ticket money, obviously, was going into his transfer kit. So it did work in that sense. But it was quite interesting, though, at the same time, where they did try to say that was the reason that they were shutting us all out, essentially not giving us allocation when, you know, we know the truth. But we've debated that, or we've talked about that point off. But this is the first season that's happened. And of course, with them doing that, and it's got to be tit for tat when it comes to Celtic and Rangers, they're like, well, if you're going to do that to us, we're going to do it back to you. And of course, we play them in the first meeting that season at Celtic Park. Hey, Chunks and my Chunks, welcome back. Good
to see you, pal.
Good to see you, mate. Good to see you back on the bus. Welcome aboard, mate. But yeah, this is the summer that happened. So what did Gerrard do then in terms of like bringing in players to try and compete with us? They brought in Scott Arfield, Kyle Lafferty, John Flanagan, Borna Barisic, Nikola Katic, Eros Grezda, I believe it's pronounced, Albanian midfielder. He barely played a game for them. Connor Goldson, Jamie Murphy, and Mr. Angry Alan McGregor, who would this season create a few headlines for some angry outbursts on the park, which he's still doing to this day. That guy has serious anger issues. Kenny Miller, David Bates, Michael O'Halloran, Bruno Alves, Harry Forrester, Fabio Cardozo, Declan John, and Josh Windass all headed out the revolving door at Ibrox. So yeah, typical Rangers summer there. You know, it's like 10 in, 10 out pretty much all the time. But yeah, in terms of like pre-season friendlies, Celtic headed off to Austria for their summer training camp. They won 3 out of the 4 games, including a win over Sparta Prague from the Czech Republic.
See, just quickly though, I did feel that their summer meant a hell of a lot more business, as it were. I thought it was a more intriguing window. I appreciate the numbers, and it's easy to just slap them down for that. But I definitely thought the players they brought in, you had a feeling they might be better than the ones that they had before.
Spoke
the ones that
volumes.
done this before, I thought the mood had changed around there. Like they were to get that guy, even though he's never managed before, right? They still went out their way to obviously sell coming to Ibrox with "you're going to back you." Now, to me, when you've got guaranteed success and you've had a body of evidence of success, that's when a board should be really investing then and retaining what they've got in the dugout. Celtic didn't do that.
Yeah.
Rangers speculated on someone they knew their fans would 100% buy into, and they went to get him, we'll buy into that. Whereas Celtic actually had so much knowledge now. Brendan Rodgers rocks. Why the fuck are we the ones not... You know, I'm not asking for us to throw the kitchen sink and spend money we don't have. But one manager got properly backed by his board this summer. One didn't. And it is incredible to think the way round it is. And if you said this to any foreign fan who knew nothing about Scottish football and told them the narrative leading up to that summer, told them the manager's involved, one's never managed a game before, the other one's took a double treble, unprecedented, you know, and 2 Champions League campaigns already. I find that, I mean, that's damning on Celtic. Absolutely damning.
Massively dropped the ball this summer. Interestingly enough, I think it spoke volumes though after the number of players that Caixinha had brought in and the certain types of players. Caixinha went for like a more, you know, a lot of Latin-based signings, you know, a lot like I tried to play a different style, but Gerrard, looking at some of the guys he was bringing in for them, it was a case of we need to get players in who get it, who like to kick lumps at Celtic. Kyle Lafferty coming back to them, bringing in guys like Scott Arfield, you know, a clogger like Connor Goldson, Alan McGregor returning to the club. Very much the ethos had changed back to, right, we need to go back to our roots here, get guys in that enjoy just, you know, sticking it to them across the city. It did feel like they were going that, but at the end of the day, as you say, they did, you know, he was given free rein and brought in a significant turnaround in players. So many went out, many coming back in. But yeah, the ones that go out, like guys like Cardozo and Alves, spoke volumes, really. They were all guys that were big signings for Pedro Caixinha just a year before. I was like, nah, that's not going to work against them. We need to go back to basics here. We need to go back to those players that like to kick lumps at the Celtic. So, yeah, that was about they were going down. I mean, the Kyle Lafferty signing literally came a day after he scored a winner against us. He was playing for Hearts at the start of the season, remember? He scores a winner at Tynecastle, and then he signs for Rangers the next day. And in the first Glasgow derby that we play them, he's playing that day, and all they did all game was just big diagonals to him across the park, Route 1 diagonals. We talked about it a few weeks ago when we did the League Cups finals against Rangers. I talked about the 2009 final. In 2009, they were doing that for Lafferty, just hitting him with big diagonals up against Andreas Hinkel. And I'm like, there we go. In 2018, the exact same tactics. It's just like, I just get on the ball and just knock a big long ball across him and he'll try and chest it down. So, yeah, he hadn't changed his game much in pretty much a decade as well. It was always the same tactics, but that was the Rangers were going to go down. That was their secret weapon to try and thwart us this coming season. But yeah, in terms of the... Cheers, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks. She's been dishing out the memberships. Nice
one, we don't get the notifications.
We don't see it. I think I'm judging by the comments. Pan's been buying a wee lottery of memberships for people. That's really kind, Pan. Nice
thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. We don't get the notifications of StreamYard. It doesn't send them through.
Sadly.
Doesn't that one? No,
but
it does not. Yeah. So in terms of pre-season games, we went to Austria. We beat Sparta Prague 1-0 in a friendly out there, and we won 3 of the 4 games we played, mostly against Austrian amateur teams. Celtic romped a 7-0 victory over Shamrock Rovers in Ireland and finished off with a 4-1 win against Standard Liège at Celtic Park. But in between all those pre-season friendlies, Celtic would have 4 rounds of Champions League qualifiers to navigate. The previous 2 seasons, it was 3 rounds. This season, it was going to be 4 rounds due to the coefficient. But Brendan had navigated 3 in the previous 2 rounds. He had got there, and don't get me wrong, some of the games that we played in the previous 2 years, particularly Beersheva, the Israeli team, that was one of those hide behind the couch type of games. But yeah, that we did get there by hook or by crook. But yeah, we had 4 fixtures awaiting for us. It doesn't quite go according to plan. We'll be talking about that. Obviously, we go into the second half of the show. So we're actually coming up to 56 minutes now. So now seems like a good time to put a new musical interlude, guys. And when we come back, we'll be leading off with that European campaign and the rather controversial start to the season in terms of a certain player. Well, he down to tools, should we say? But there's a lot of circumstances around it that we're going to look at. A lot of different stories flying around, and as I say, there's 2 sides to every story. But we talk about that because it has a massive part in how we don't qualify for the Champions League. And then, funny enough, same said player in his first game back scores a winning goal against Hamilton Academical, almost like the script was written in that one. Weird how football works sometimes. So yeah, we'll be back in a few minutes.
How long have we got, Phil?
Of how long? What?
Aye, because my toilet's way down in the West Wing,
2 minutes and 19 seconds. So go now.
When you've all that stuff at the start, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.
And we are back, and Chunks of My Chunks is back with a membership as well. There you go. He's picked up where he's left off.
Big Chunks. And bought a legend, by the way. Remember as well, he bought one of the Boise Bus shirts you're wearing, Phil, and refused to take it. He actually raffled it off. I don't know if you knew that, Liam. Like, how kind is that? He was like, I'll just, one of the bus members can get it, and Scott Howe won it, which I thought was really fitting. Do you know what I mean? That was class that he won it, because he's always involved in the chat and finds it all funny. But I think Big Chunks has been so good to us all. So good to see you back, mate. And I'm glad 6 weeks early. That sounds like good work to me, mate. Hope you're getting paid the same. because you deserve it, mate. If you get to get away 6 weeks early, if I get away 6 minutes early, I get docked an hour's wages.
But it's good to see you back on a good familiar
Brilliant
name on
to
the
see you
bus. So
again.
take your seat as usual, Chunks and my Chunks, because this is a roller coaster of a season that we're heading into. So yes, 2018-2019. Let's start with what I've called the boycott from Boyata. Yes, an interesting summer for Dedrick, who just a couple of years before, it'd be safe to say he was on the scrap heap after the Ronnie Dyler second season, where every player looked down and out after it. He would have been one of the ones that could have easily left that summer and nobody would have even batted an eyelid. I think the best saying for it would be, nobody cares, mate. Nobody cares. Because, Boyata was basically going nowhere at Celtic, but he found a second wind, a reprieve, whatever you want to call it, a redemption story, because midway through Brendan's first season, after we beat Rangers at Ibrox, Eric Sviatchenko just basically got phased out of the team. Dedrick Boyata came in and didn't seem to look back after that. He picked up a bit of form, although he was a bit of a bomb scare in European games. When we did play the Champions League the next season, he did have some shockers. I remember one against Bayern Munich in particular at home, where he tried to pass the ball back to Craig Gordon, I believe, right into the path of either Serge Gnabry or Leroy Sané. I think it was Serge Gnabry. Sané had signed for him at that point, and just goes round him, puts it in an empty net, and it's just like, oh, Boyata, what have you done? What have you done? But domestically, Boyata had definitely improved, and I think the stats also showed that out of all the players in the team, he got the most touches of the ball. That's not necessarily something to be proud of. It's just a case of the way we played. It was very much sideways passing along the back, build from the back. Boyata always seemed to be the guy that would start attacks and so on. So he was definitely in the team, but he went away to the World Cup in the summer of 2018 with the Belgian national team. He only played 2 games. He played in the dead rubber group game against England, the game that neither team wanted to win. Both teams were playing like they didn't want to win the game because they knew if we lose, we've actually got an easier path in the second round. Belgium did actually win that game. Boyata played that one. And he played in the third place playoff, which was also against England. And they won that game as well. And he got himself a nice wee third place winners medal. But he comes back and there's a lot of talk going around. I don't know if he just changed his agent at the time, but there was a lot of feeling that his agent was maybe up to some funny business. But there was talk that Fulham had put a £9 million bid in for Dedrick Boyata. Celtic didn't obviously want that. They wanted to hold it for more money. But as it turned out, Boyata was out of contract in a year's time. We've just spent £9 million on Austin Edward. Here apparently is a situation presenting itself where a player who doesn't look like he's going to sign a contract extension, £9 million on the table, who, let's be honest, isn't a great player. He's had a wee bit of a purple patch, but he's not outstanding. But it seemed like good business from a fan point of view, where we could reinvest that. Again, stories are that Brendan Rodgers was in favour of the sale because it might even get money in for more reinvestment. But Celtic obviously held out for more money, whatever it was, and Boyata was inconveniently injured in our 2 games against AEK Athens in the third round of the Champions League after we'd dusted aside Alishkert and Rosenborg. AEK Athens awaited, and yet he missed those 2 games, Russell. And he's still held responsible by many fans that he's the sole reason. I don't think he's the sole reason that we lost. I mean, is he that vital, really? But ultimately, it didn't help. And we end up going out over 2 legs to AEK Athens. And he is definitely public enemy number 1 at that point in time, isn't he?
So who was our centre back at that point? Was that back to Nir Bitton again? It must have.
Siminovic would have been there. Siminovic did get sent off against Alishkert, but he would have been eligible to play against Rosenborg because the suspension would have been up by then. So Siminovic and Christopher Aya would have been available.
That's
so that
right.
would have been aye.
But both of them were on. Aya was still untested at that point. He'd really not come into like a real good game or dominating figure to be playing in a Champions League qualifier. I don't know. That's when you could just see the wheels were coming off. I thought everything was going great that summer. Everything was leading up to, okay, this is going to be a great season. We've got a treble treble coming up. I mean, it just sounds sexy as hell, you know. I mean, everything was going our way. We've got a £9 million player. All right, okay, we lost Dembele and all that, but we thought Dembele was throwing the toys at the pram. You know, going back to the signings as well, there was just all these little rumours and things starting to happen that this wasn't it. Rodgers didn't have a grip in the team that we thought we did. I mean, my first one was when we signed Ezagiri. you're looking at it as a that's a signing that's got absolutely no imagination, considering the players that were touted. And then at that point, you're starting to think, that's not a Rodgers signing.
No.
You wouldn't think it's a Gary again. You know?
Definitely no.
So just seeing it, and I think Boyata throwing the toys out the pram there as well. I mean, that was a big statement. We invest a lot, everything we have into making the Champions League and all that. And, you know, as fans as well, we, there's a lot of emotion in that and a lot of talking and, you know, that. And so for him just to sort of down tools and that, I thought that was bad form. And I think that's as much to do with the manager as well, because it's all about communication. You know, stuff should be sorted behind closed doors, no in the middle of it when we're trying to qualify.
Aye. Russell, what about yourself? What was your feelings on the whole Boyata fiasco? Who was to blame? Was it just a shambles all over?
From my point of view, £9 million was a beautiful headline to say we'd been offered. I think if we'd been offered £9 million as a straightforward £9 million, Brendan Rodgers wouldn't have got a say. He'd be gone.
True, yeah.
I can't help but feel if you think Brendan Rodgers was actually maybe a bit for the deal, then why the hell would Celtic not be? This, you know, it doesn't add up. This is not how they do business. They bite at these things. So inevitably for me, I think the £9 million was inflated, probably by Boyata's team because he tried to force a move. If there was anything even close to that, it'd been offered by a Fulham side going, he's got 1 year left in his deal, and we will offer a Rangers sort of, 16 instalments sort of thing to get you up to maybe half of that money. There's no way Celtic were offered £9 million up front for Dedrick Boyata, and we turned it down when the manager wanted them to go as well. The problem would normally be the manager doesn't want a player to leave Celtic. Let's get it right. So why would this deal be in isolation, completely different from every other deal that usually frustrates us when it's a player, as you rightfully said, Phil, would have ranked mid-table in our list of priority players. If you were to rank the squad, he's a comfortable 11th, 12th in the list. That's it. So £9 million, everyone's laughing all the way at the bank and the deal is done. So let's get that maybe it was Transfer Market that told Celtic it was £9 million.
Maybe,
because it wasn't fucking... It just doesn't... It's the only one... You look at it and it's in isolation and you look at the rest of that window, that deal doesn't add up. It doesn't stack. And therefore, I think that fee is just pie in the sky bullshit. I think it was money from another planet, another universe, similar to the Morelos stuff and, whoever else who's had £50 million bids for. So for me, he would have been gone if that had been offered. The fact he boycotted it is because he's getting fed shit by his agent and clearly by hanging about with Belgium, who ranked number 1 at the time in the world, his ego's out of control. And to be honest, as I say with everything in life, often that comes for the top. When you have someone above you that's aloof and thinks they're the ticket, the people below you follow suit. We've seen that in loads of different things in life, Phil.
Yes.
And it's just one of these things that happens. And I think he's had his ego boosted. Brendan Rodgers has turned him into a recognised player for Belgium again, 2 out of 5 games or 2 out of 6 games at a World Cup. He's playing with some of the best players in the world. He's came back feeling gallus with an agent going, you're worth fucking 20 million, but they're going to sell you for 9. There's been no £9 million bid, Dedrick. Nobody knows how to tell you it's a load of shite. Fulham are offering you about £2 million up front and the rest in ginger bottles, and you're going to spit the dummy. And that's the way it goes. One of the other things about it is he was in an environment of Stepping Stone FC at this point, where they all thought if a club for the EPL, doesn't matter who it is, didn't matter if it was, honestly, it didn't matter then, it could be Gillingham playing in the Premier League, but a Stepping Stone FC will not stand in your way of going to the EPL. That's the way it was then. I think that came from Brendan. I think that was one of his biggest flaws. I think he started with that mantra. I think he thought he was being clever, but in actual fact, players just thought, this is now a trick we're now going to use against them. And it was, but you said if we do well for you, we'll end up at a bigger league. And particularly probably emphasised the EPL because he had experience there. And I think a lot of the players have then used those maybe flippant words at times that he's used against him. I think that's happened time and time again. And I think when you look at the quality of clubs, so many players have left since Brendan came in. You take Kieran Tierney away, and guess who it was that sold Tierney to Arsenal? Lennon. because he's going, that is a bona fide big club.
Yeah.
I think, you remember when Lennon left first time round? It's because he was frustrated at losing Fosters and Wanyamas to Southampton. He didn't think that was the right move. I think by the time, see when you've got Armstrong signing 1 year deals, but I'm still going to sell you anyway. This is all now. I think Rodgers' fuck up was he engineered a lot of the players into a way of thinking. Celtic is stepping stone FC, and the actual club you're going to was irrelevant. You're going to more money and bigger league with bright lights. I don't think Ange would advise players to do that.
No, definitely no.
I don't think he's signed, and I don't mean he would, beg them to stay. That's not what I'm saying. I think he's looked at players though and went, when you join us, you're joining one of the biggest clubs in Europe. Do you know why I came here? Because I couldn't believe Celtic asked me. It took me 5 minutes to agree to come here. You should do the same. Right? And I think that's selling Celtic.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to folk leaving, he's like, he's a tenor, mate, he can go. Which is this up to him. Right? But I think Rodgers brought them in on a few false promises. I think he could have sold Celtic a bit more.
Yeah, of course.
Russell, I remember listening to Cy Ferry on Open Goal, and they were talking to Kearney, and he was talking about when Rodgers first came into the team, that they all got given this binder, this book that was the other, and it was all about Brendan Rodgers. It was everything about, it was about him, his background, his team, his selection of team, his philosophies, all that stuff. It wasn't welcome to Celtic. It was welcome to Brendan Rodgers. You know, this is what you'll expect from a Brendan Rodgers team. You know, I expect. It's interesting that, because it was Brendan Rodgers all about himself. And, we thought he was a Celtic man, but Brendan Rodgers, man.
So as long as I'm here, Danny, you'll be here. Yes, that famous story. It's interesting to know that
it's not his fault.
You go. Oh, yeah, okay. I was going to say, at the start of the show, you talked about how this season we're talking about how there's so many things that sort of mirror what's going on just now, and we need to avoid that. It's interesting as well. We had the defender that came back for a World Cup after finishing third and basically got a move off back that, and obviously with Boyata, he was trying to force a move. It's weird that how that happened as well these 2 seasons.
Yeah, that is another similarity, and it's a good point. I also happen to think in both cases, when you look at Boyata, like him bailing out, I don't think Brendan was looking at this as a huge loss. I don't think he's going, fuck. And it's the same with Ange. Ange already identified his replacement. Do you honestly think Rodgers was, I know he's the rat, right? And it's great to say he's shite. It's great right now just to go, oh, he's shite. Do you think Brendan Rodgers wouldn't have a wee short list? If I think, and Rodgers has he not got some sort of qualification in psychology? Rodgers, I'm sure he does. So I'm sure he does. And
it feels like he does for the way he talks.
I think he would definitely be able to identify that Dedra Boyata, before he goes to that World Cup, has started wearing a hairband. His ego is out of control. He's going to come back and ask for a fucking move. So I think Rodgers would have been smart enough to have his wee list written down. But when you don't get your Puccinis, you don't get your Castagnes, suddenly Celtic were in a position where, look what we've let you keep though, Brendan.
Yes.
We could have took that, and it is £9 million, right? And Rodgers like, I told you, just fucking sell him and buy the guy on my list. But Boyata would have been at Celtic, remember, having been in Man City's reserves on a basic contract. He never renewed it. Hence why he was coming to the end of his tenure. Hence why he was in the final year of his deal. So he'd have been on a 10, 15 grand a week contract, where Rodgers was probably looking at guys for Serie A for 30, 35 grand a week contract, as well as that same 9 million fee, right? So suddenly the 9 million fee, in fact, I've just worked it out. Of course 9 million fees came for Celtic. Of course it has, because it mirrors what, you have signed a 9 million player, but we're letting you keep one. It's fucking, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up why, do you know what I mean? But I think it suited Celtic because he wasn't a huge expenditure on the week-to-week or the month-to-month wages bill. Because he was on that original contract when he joined us, if you remember, Boyata, for only 1.25 million, if I'm right. For Man City. So he was not on a big contract then at all. So I think it comes for that, man.
When I was putting this together and going through it, I'm like, this just doesn't fit Celtic's business model. You've got a player that's out of contract in a year's time. By all accounts, it looks like he's not going to sign an extension. You've apparently been offered £9 million after just spending £9 million. Everything about that screams Peter Lawwell's all over that. Absolutely all over that. But no, for whatever reason, that happened. So the likelihood is the bid was probably never real. But it's obviously filled Boyata's head with all sorts of like ideas and promises now from his agent, and it never materialised. Boyata made this decision. Obviously, he was conveniently injured for the 2 games against Athens, didn't play. Of course, we ended up losing those 2 games, and the Champions League dream was over. So
was this not Terminado Gate as well?
Terminado, I believe it was.
I'm sure it was after EK, no?
I think it was.
He said Terminado. Remember the quote? He said Terminado, Liam.
No, what's the term? I don't know that one. Maybe somebody else doesn't know.
I've seen it. He 100% says Terminado. He says if things, but it was such a sleight of hand that he uses. But he basically was saying, if you don't get what you want, or the club thinks, something like if the club see it differently from what I do now and want to take it in a different road, then it's, usually that means Terminado. He used the word, someone will come in the comments. I'm positive it's after exiting the Champions League playoffs. Terminado was used by Brendan Rodgers. He's signposting you what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, once, again, hindsight's 2020. That's an expression we'll use a few times tonight. When what happens in February and he does walk away, there's so many like breadcrumbs that eventually you're like, it was there. The trail was right there. It was right in front of our eyes the entire time. And there was a lot of clues along the way. Marian Shved one in particular, that interview just a few weeks before. What we signing another winger for? I don't know. The club's got 1 million wingers. Why we sign them? So yeah, there was a lot of clues along the way that things were not well, and that was definitely. I remember this time that it was beginning to show. But again, me in particular, I know many fans were in the same. We're all just living in this wee happy bubble, and it's like, oh, everything's going well. We're still better than that lot. We're winning treble after treble. Who cares? We don't notice it, but yeah, it would all come home to roost.
You've got to be able to look at what's in front of you, right? And look at it and kind of try and take yourself out the sentimental equation of it all. Mm-hmm. Now, the sentimental bit and the romance of Rodgers there and doing all this at Ibrox and the double treble, 2 years in a row in the Champions League with a guy who's selling autobiographies to all the same folk calling him a rat now, by the way. They've had to chuck that in the bin the same way a life-size Stevie Gerrard fucking cardboard cutout's been put in the bin. Same thing, just not as obvious, right? Let's get it fucking right here. So, right, the thing was, at that point in time, no one's seen Celtic not playing ball with Rodgers. We thought, look how great everything is. The Holy Trinity. Again, another term Rodgers used. He said it's the Holy Trinity. When the fans, the coaching staff, the coach staff and the players and the board are all going in the same direction. He called it the Holy Trinity. And he was right. Someone out the trio bailed out on that. The board will argue it was Brendan. Brendan will argue it was the board. And that one is the debate. But one thing will be sure. See, come this summer, or say midway through next season, and we don't have a compelling summer, and Ange fucks off to a Brighton or whatever, I wonder if anyone will have the tenacity to call him said rat, or whether it'll be all the board's fault again. Because history's got a funny way of repeating itself
if you don't learn from it. Yep.
It's the same people. Leopards don't tend to change their spots.
Yep.
Liam, you know that better than anyone. You through life, you see it.
Aye, definitely. It's basically Lawwell's no longer the CEO. He's now the chairman. It's Michael Nixon who was on the board before. So you're right, it is all the same people. So hopefully we're not sitting here in February and next year and like, oh God, it's all happened again. Hopefully, when it comes to history, if you don't learn from it, you're doomed to repeat it. And this season should work as a sort of, this is how not to do it, Celtic. So yeah, hopefully we learn from it. But after losing Athens, guys, we're not out of Europe yet. We dropped in the Europa League playoffs as a sort of like fail-safe. We had to limp our way through a match with Sedova. I remember, at the time, we drew 1-1 away. So it was like after the debacle against Athens, I think at this point we've already played some domestic games. We've already lost to Hearts as well. So things weren't a great start out of the Champions League. A player that went on strike, we had to play Sedova, drew 1-1 in Lithuania. dropping down to the Europa League. You know, there's a bit of a cloud over the club. We did end up winning 3-0 in the second leg, though, to get into the Europa League group stage as well. Liam, quite sensationally, and I am amazed to this day that this is allowed to happen under UEFA's rules. We would end up drawing Red Bull Salzburg and Red Bull Leipzig, both owned by the same drinks company, Red Bull. And of course, we got Rosenborg, our good pals Rosenborg, again after playing them in the qualifiers just a few weeks before. We've got them again. But I couldn't believe at the time that this was actually allowed to happen, that two teams who are owned by the same company, surely a conflict of interest. I know they're from different countries, Austria and Germany, but I was like, that cannot be allowed, because UEFA will always say...
a debate about the company and the club differences, though, are we?
Oh, company and clubs, yes. That's always a very topical thing in Scottish football. But, you know, whenever you watch the Champions League and the Europa League draw, they do that whole video at the start with all the, this is how it works, and they'll outline certain things. Like, for years, they always did the whole Russian and Ukrainian teams will not be drawn in the same group together. For obvious reasons, there's been a lot of tension between them. It's obviously escalated in the last few years. But they're quite happy for, like, Serbian teams and Croatian teams to play each other. That's fine. But yeah, this one, two teams that are owned by the exact same company are allowed to be in the same group. It was a bizarre feel, because my first thought was, oh, we're going to get shafted here. This is going to work where they two will qualify. It's a certainty, not only the fact they're two good teams in relation to us, but I was a bit worried at first, like, oh, Jesus, this is a conflict of interest.
That's a perfect example of the modernisation of football. Money talk. You know, here you have teams, both Red Bull. By the way, what history did Red Bull ever have in football? All of a sudden, they've got teams and popping up all over the world. I pitched on the Toronto campaign, Toronto FC. Toronto was originally supposed to be Toronto Red Bull. That was the competitive pitch. And there was going to be Austrian money coming in there, and Red Bull was going to be part of the MLS, and they didn't work in Toronto. So they just moved, used the same pitch for New York and won it that way. But I think that's when you see like football becoming modern, where a sponsor can be so big that they can create a management company to manage a couple of teams that have the same interests and also actually play against each other and that as well. So I think money talks, you know. I've never been not surprised, you know, when rules are bent or flexed is just, you know, suit somebody just because, you know, they'll make profit from it. Just like Mbappe and PSG, as we talked about earlier, being able to get loaned for a year. So, no, wasn't it? I mean, I think one of them, the Viennas, was that not formerly one of the Viennas we played? Or was that Rapid Vienna?
Rapid Vienna we played. It was Austria Vienna got bought out by... No, it was FC Salzburg were bought out by Red Bull, and became Red Bull Salzburg. Austria Vienna, I think, are still going, but are down in the lower divisions. But Rapid Vienna are the ones that we played in the 80s in the Cup Winners' Cup. The infamous game with the bottle getting thrown on and so on, and the player play acting, and we didn't even hit them and getting knocked out. I think they went on to the final that year as well to lose to Everton. So it's one of those games that if Celtic had got through, one of those great what-if moments could you have been in a Cup Winners' Cup.
Did you actually give a monkey's butt about like fucking whether there was two Red Bull teams in the group? I never thought there'll be. I just think
I did. I genuinely, my first thought was that can't be allowed. I genuinely thought that can't, because it never happened before. Because Salzburg and Leipzig had been around for a good while under the Red Bull banner, but they've never played each other.
How many lives do we get of kicking teams out in Europe? But come on, come on, we've run out of lives, mate. I'll be honest, I think it's just a big, massive company that have bought two clubs, and I didn't subscribe to that being something that would go against us. If you beat them, you beat them.
It just seemed weird that they'd be allowed to happen because they're both owned by the same company, so they're playing each other. I was like, surely UEFA would go, that's a conflict of interest.
Nobody cares, man.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. Liam's right. Money talks. But yeah, we'll now be playing those two teams and playing Rosenborg for the sixth time in 18 months. We'd have another two fixtures against them after just playing them a few weeks before. But yeah, but either way, we're still in Europe in some capacity, so we may as well have a go at it. And this is something that I mentioned on a recent episode of Bustalgia. Up until this point here, there you go, the City group, you're right.
Including us.
Aye, by the way, aye.
Let's be honest. Hey, imagine a group of what else could be in that? Is there any other European teams under there? radar just now.
Yeah, they're not being renamed. The ones in like there's Melbourne City and New York City get rebranded as City with Sky Blue, but they own Girona, who are a team in the Spanish league,
right.
and they own a team called Troy, who are in the French league. And I only know this because Patrick Roberts has been loaned out to those clubs in his time since leaving Celtic because he's part of the City group. So he was just like sent to Celtic. Okay, we'll now send them to Troy. We'll send them to Girona. Yeah, they own a few teams around the continent, but the ones in like Australia and New York, they fully rebranded them with City. I think they've got an Indian team as well, Mumbai City. They wear sky blue. They put City on the end of the team name as well. Girona, Troy, Lamel. That's a Belgian team, I think. Jeez, man, it will happen. It will end up happening.
Look at what Celtic have just employed in the last, 18 months, 24 months, let's say last year's. Ange Postecoglou, part of the City group, right? 100%. Yep. Matt Lawwell, straight from it. Our new scouting recruitment head, or whatever he is, straight from the City group. Who are we trying to get before that as a managerial team? Fergal Harkin, Fergal Sharkey, aye. Like, do you know what I mean? We're trying to get him in then.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So if we get drawn with Man City in next season's Champions League, what would you say to someone panicking then, Phil? Just tell me, go on with it.
Aye.
You would.
Yeah. Aye.
Three fucks, mate. Let's just tell the truth. You just go, nobody cares, mate. We're different.
Well, we've played Man City in recent years when we've still been utilising the City connections. Yeah, we did. Aye, we did. By the way, there you go.
Fuck's sake. Chunks, man. Top man, mate.
Thank you very much.
What a man. What a man.
Top man. Top banana.
Good to have you back, Junks. We're not for that. Just so your banter, mate. Start sticking the patter into folk in the chat, Junks. Where's Bob? Did you hear Bob resigned?
Yeah.
Sent me Bob McBob. Said, "Going, the end of the chapter is closed now for Bob on the bus. Wish you all the best." I'm like, what? I'm like, firstly, you don't need to send a resignation letter. Secondly, it's not us irritating you, it's you irritating the chat. And he was getting almost like a persona that was just getting too big. And when everyone started chopping him down, he didn't like it. He was more respectful before that. But there's a comment on one of the videos. I'd always gone all right with Bob. I'm not going to lie to you. But he was winding folk up. And he obviously didn't like it back. And I think last night maybe some of the chat about Rangers he just definitely didn't like. But I think he just had it, I think he just got it too tight. And it was nice for the wee resignation note, though. Look at the blue band. It probably is Bob McBob. Let's be honest. He says one Bob McBob. Probably is you, Bob. Let's be real.
Probably.
Yeah. Bob, you don't do walking away. Come walk back.
Welcome on the bus.
Of course.
Bob.
Yes, I doesn't do walk away. Good point. I get jump back on anytime.
He'll want the hashtag bring back Bob though. Do you know what I mean? Just sit after the blue Baron Chunks. He'll be good fun.
But yeah, as we had to make do with this Europa League group, so I had to make a go of it. So I did mention the other week on one of the Bustalgia episodes we did, we have a bizarre record up to that point where we never ever win the first group game in a European competition, whether it's a Champions League or a Europa League group. We just never seem to win the first game. But that would all change in this one, because once again, we're playing our old pals Rosenborg. And in the 87th minute, we left it a little late. Didi Boyata set it up because he did that whole thing where we're struggling for a goal, so the centre-back goes forward, like Virgil van Dijk used to do under Dyler. We struggle for a goal, so he would just go forward. Boyata stayed up in an attack. Good diagonal to him. He heads the ball across the goal. Wee Griffiths nods it in with a couple of minutes to go and gets us that first win in the first game of a group stage because, we didn't tend to do that. But it didn't go well after that. We would lose the next two games because, as is tradition with Celtic, usually decent at home, pretty bad away from home. And even though we took the lead against Salzburg in Austria after just 2 minutes from Odsonne Edouard and held our own until half-time, we completely capitulated in the second half. I believe Salzburg had an Israeli striker named Dabur, who was a bit of a pest for us, and Minamino, the Japanese midfielder who went to Liverpool. He scores against us in this game as well.
Did De Boer not play, not De Boer, you know?
Not that one, yes.
Not the one Dennis Long thought there was, you know, he was that good, you'd think there was two of them, you know?
Yes.
So I guess there was. But that Dabber, did he not play up top for, did he not play up front for Israel as well? And Scotland in amongst this time played Israel about 43 times.
Yeah.
Look at all that Calmac on 50 caps. I'm like, it's a shame 39 of them against fucking Israel. Do you know what I mean? That was their box. That De Boer, he definitely. I'm sure he played for Israel. So you were seeing him all the time.
Yeah, well, we couldn't escape him. Just like we couldn't escape Rosenborg, Scotland couldn't escape Israel. It was all the same. And then after that, it was Ukraine that Scotland kept drawing. So I wonder who the next team will be that Scotland are always drawing. But yeah, he was playing for them. They beat us 3-1 in the end there, and then we went out to Leipzig for the next game and lost 2-0 in Germany. So we were really up against it after 3 games. But then I'd say one of the better European nights at Celtic Park in recent times.
Good spot, Kieran. It was deliberate. It was deliberate.
But this game's fondly remembered. This is the first game officially with the disco lights in use. We didn't use them against Rosenborg. It was the Leipzig game where they were first used.
I was there.
Yes. This one's very fondly remembered. I say out of recent European home performances, we've not had many great ones, but this one seems to live long in the memories. Kieran Tierney puts us ahead. Leipzig get an equaliser, and then Russell 60 seconds after they've equalised, we literally kick off. And in FIFA, this would be deemed like a sort of sweaty goal, where that's an exploit in FIFA, where for some reason at kick off you can score dead easy goals. It felt like a FIFA goal. We let you kick off, a couple of passes up the park, a square ball across the goal from Ryan Christie, I believe, and then Odsonne Edouard there to tap it in, puts us 2-1 up, and we go on and we win it 2-1. Good night.
Brilliant European one. Absolutely brilliant. And I'm one of those folk, you know, the only reason I'm at the game was because, as you know, I work Saturdays, still work Saturdays there. But I'm like, you can go to midweek games. Oh, no, it's Champions League. You can't. Europa League. Tick. There's ticket availability. So I just bought the 3-game package. I didn't even think I went to Rosenborg when they were fucking doing my hair or something. But I would definitely, it was at the Leipzig one. I'm sure if I'm right, that was it. Was that the first time they'd done the disco lights?
It was indeed, yep.
And we were like, it was me and the missus at the time, we just kind of got to pick up the ball with the old Celtic, but she was right into it by then. Like, telling me who she thought, like, what we're going to do in that. I was like, fucking not bad, like me, Nagelsmann. I was like, she's picked this up pretty quick. It was, that game was mad because even though they equalised, I had every faith we were going to go on and win that.
Yeah.
There was something in that night. I didn't expect to go as quick as that, fuck's sake, Phil.
Yeah.
Am I freezing at my end?
No, you're fine. Absolutely fine.
No, it was really good. I enjoyed it.
It was good. But yeah, Liam, we've now dragged ourselves back into the group stages.
You put up technical issues and it threw me off stride. That was really good. I'll move on.
But yeah, we've obviously needed that win, Liam, because now it's set us up with 2 games to go. We've got an away trip to Rosenborg, even though, we're not very good away from home, but we've got a good record against Rosenborg in recent fixtures. We've played them a million times at this point. And we've also got a home game coming against Salzburg, but I got us right back into it. And it was just a case of, right, we need to find one more win from somewhere. 9 points should be enough to get us through, but that game, the Leipzig one, it is up there in recent years anyway, as one of the better European nights, because as we've talked about many times, it's became a bit crap, the home games as well recently in Europe, but that's a good one, isn't it?
I thought so as well. I mean, yeah, that's what you want. You want one big game. I mean, they're not a big name by any chance, you know. That's the teams I expect to be at home on a big European night. We've never ever feared teams like them or Rosenborg or anything like that coming. You know, we've faced off Barcelona and, you know, Inter Milan and AC Milan and stuff like that. So I expect us to beat these teams, and I thought that was a good night. And yeah, you walk away feeling good for it. You know, feeling good. Well, good. It was a good afternoon for me. Put it that way.
Afternoon for you. Yes, it would have been. But I would say we're back into it now. So up next, we're away to Rosenborg, and a Scott Sinclair header gets us the winner out there. Pretty uneventful game, but it got us 3 points, and now we find ourselves obviously, you know, we've beat Leipzig at home, we've beat Rosenborg at home, we've got a win away from home. So it's all set up where, right, we're playing Salzburg in the last game, who actually go on and win this group with 6 wins out of 6. They've been quite a decent force in Europe for the last few years, but they just can't get over that sort of last hurdle. They get into the latter stages, but yeah, 6 wins out of 6 in this group. They are a formidable force and a team that we've not beat as well. We've played them a few times. We played them under Dyler as well in the Europa League group stages. But yeah, they're coming to Celtic Park in the last game. But a point for us will show that a win will definitely get us through, no doubt about it. But if obviously we lose, we're relying on Rosenborg, who at this point have 0 points. They've not got a single point on the board. They've been absolute whipping boys of the group. So surely we can't rely on Rosenborg to do us any favours. But yeah, we do go and play Salzburg in that last game. It doesn't go well. That Dabur obviously scores. And then Craig Gordon has a moment that many fans will always point to as one of the... I mean, I think Craig Gordon was a good keeper for us. But whenever I see people who like to sort of trash him and say he wasn't good in that, that's always one they point to. And it's a similar...
You don't remember the saves. You don't remember the saves,
You don't remember the saves, I know.
Even in this game, because I watched it today.
Yeah.
Some of these stays up to that point were a joke.
Yeah. Because remember at the start of the show when I talked about the Champions League fair, I talked about Loris Karius rolling a ball right into Karim Benzema's path. Craig Gordon does a Karius and just rolls it right into the striker's path. And yeah, the guy sticks it in the net. We're 2-0 down. We're struggling. The news comes through that Leipzig are winning 1-0 going into the dying embers of the game. So as it stands right now, Celtic are heading out on record against Leipzig because both teams will be on 9 points. They beat us 2-0 in Germany. We beat them 2-1 at Celtic Park. So they're going through on aggregate score. And then, sensationally, in like the 88th or 89th minute, Rosenborg score a very, very late equaliser. I remember this very well because where I sit at Celtic Park, right at the top of a stairwell, just in front of the doors in the Lord Jockstein stand, I was checking my phone, trying to get a signal to see if I could get the Sky Sports app to work to tell me the score. Usually the Wi-Fi at Celtic Park is garbage, and for this 10-second spell, it just seemed to work. And I refreshed my phone, and it instantly changed from 1-0 Leipzig to 1-1, to which I instantly blotted out, Rosenborg have scored, and guys that were walking up the stairs by me just stopped in their tracks. They're like, what does that mean? And I was like, that means we're through. As it stands right now, we're through, and loads of guys were just basically huddled round for the last couple of minutes of the game.
So you're telling me you were in the stadium at that point?
Yes, I was, yes.
I was so far down the Celtic way, dragging my missus in a complete half.
Yeah,
I didn't sit and watch. I'm not a good loser. I didn't find it fun. I get fucked off. I was like, see you later, mate. I'm gone.
Offski.
I didn't tell nobody seen that going. Rosenborg were shite. You remember
terrible.
That? They were an awful football team.
Oh,
I had no faith they would have done that. And I'm not hanging about sitting there watching Celtic weren't going to turn around. In fact, turns out I missed a goal by Celtic as well, which I kind of only found out tonight, if I'm honest. I must have known at the time, but when I was watching, I went, and Chad missed a penalty, then scored the rebound as well. 2-1. I just thought we got beat 2-0. But I'd long fucked off, man. Oh, no.
Well, the guy...
I didn't like getting beat.
Oh, no, none of us like getting beat at all. Yeah.
No, I didn't sit out, though. I don't know how you do it. Fuck that.
Oh, it was
I'm away in a cream puff, man.
It all changed though, and I say a split second. You know, you're heading out, and then suddenly another team's done you a favour. But the defender, the big clogger who came up for the back and scored a header at the back post. His name was, I'm going to find this here. It's Reginussen, Reginussen. Tore Reginussen is his name, Norwegian centre back. But yeah, he just rises up at the back post, heads one in, gets a late equaliser. The only point Rosenborg will get on the board. And yeah, that does a favour because by hook or by crook, Celtic had got through because they finished on 9 points and Leipzig would finish on 7 points. We would draw Valencia in the next round, but we'll pick that up later because that game is obviously around about the time another massive incident happens later in this season. So we'll pick up what happened to that one in a little while. Now we'll turn our attention back to the domestic season, because as I said earlier on, with that European campaign, the way it started with flopping in the Champions League, domestically we didn't have the best of starts. After 8 league games, we'd won 5, but we'd lost away to Kilmarnock, we lost at Hearts and drew 0-0 at St Mirren, a game where Olivia and Sham was on an absolute mad one. It was like he was determined to get sent off from the very first minute, and he did get sent off after about 25 minutes. It was a bizarre game, and yeah, a pretty underwhelming start to the season because Hearts were actually top of the table as we were heading into October. It was quite
part of the
underwhelming.
banter years. That's part of the banter years. That's just rubbing it in, letting Hearts be top.
Yeah, like just giving
That's
them
just
a
to
wee-
wind. That's just to wind them up. But no. Listen, I watched it all back today, and it's a team that is in that have not had the summer they should have, which you've all just agreed. But then we expect us to win 8-8 because it's Celtic. We've got
Well,
to be
yeah.
consistent. We've just all admitted the summer we signed Joseph Malumbu. Right? This is shite. It's a terrible summer. We don't get the top targets in. We sign a guy we'd already agreed to buy the year before and make that a marquee signing. Within 2 games, Dembele's out the door as well. And the one guy in the opening 8, 9, 10 games domestically who was excellent for Celtic, well, not the only one, but the surprise package is a certain Lee Griffiths. He's fucking brilliant. Scoring goals for fun. I would love to know his goals to games ratio. I think the narrative, and we've done a few of these, Phil, so I'm not calling you out, but I'm just going to say, you've said definitely it's a myth that he scores loads of goals since the 40-goal season. I wonder if his goal percentage to games rate makes him a myth. I think it's still pretty strong. And I know sub-appearances will murk it because he's came on for 3 minutes at the end of some games. I think when he's involved, he scored goals. I just think his fitness let him down. I watched it, but I was shocked.
Yep.
My other thing I noticed, right? Scott Sinclair, if you remember this season, is in a transitional phase. And what that is, he's not turned into a girl, right? But he is 100% a winger.
Yep.
Plays on the outside. He can cut in or he can go on the outside. He's going to get 25 goals a season from the wing and 15 assists. He's lost the half yard.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I think Scott Sinclair's career was littered with this. For whatever reason, after 18 to 24 months, he loses his va-va-voom, his mojo. For some reason, he seems to drop in confidence.
Agreed.
What he becomes this season, and more so as the season plays out, he should have been kept. I am now convinced he should never have been let go. Do you know why? He was the guy who should have been the backup striker. And number 9. You remember, please, I know this is going to sound funny, but when Ronaldo changed from winger to striker, it's because one attribute left, his pace. Now, they're not playing the same sport. I get that, ladies and gentlemen. But the positionally wise, I think with him losing that, the one thing Scott Sinclair never loses, including this season, how to finish. He knows where the goal is without looking at it. I think he was the guy who could have became not a mobile striker like an Edward, but he could play. See if Lee Griffiths doesn't want to get fit. Scott Sinclair, if you remember, was bulking up. Don't know if you remember. Remember his biceps seemed to just be like, fucking hell. I think he was turning into, not a Chris Sutton number 9, but I think Sinclair could have became, he was just needing to starting to be played through the middle and being told, pick your runs. Don't run all the time. Pick your runs. I think his finishing is so underrated. And I think when I watched the first 10, 12 games of the season, Lee Griffiths looks a valuable option you could have where you could go, do you know what? There's a chink of light that he might be coming back because he's scoring all sorts of goals, free kicks, headers at the back post. He scored in the Europa League against Rosenborg, the 1-0 game. And you're looking at him going, he does look like he's got the bit between his teeth, but he's unreliable over a 10-month season. Because Rodgers knew as well, your fitness will drop, your attitude will change. He's just not got it to be elite, right? Simple as that. Sinclair had all the mindset. He just was lacking in being a winger anymore. For maybe it was a bit of confidence, but definitely think the half yard. But when you watch how many goals he scores, including that hat-trick at Aberdeen, which I know we'll get to.
Oh, yes.
You look at the back heel at home, I think that was Aberdeen as well.
Aberdeen, yep.
And plenty other finishes. You start seeing, you're going, we've him in the box. I think we missed a trick there big time.
Well, you said there a second ago that he scored. He didn't even really look at the goal. The goal against Aberdeen, the back heel, he's literally not looking at the goal. But I remember he had a quite rocky start to that season, and that goal seemed to give him a bit of a kickstart. That one against Aberdeen, where the wee back heel, he came on as a sub, and then back heels into the net.
Did we turn? Did the fans turn a wee bit on Scott Sinclair too quick? I think he got turned on pretty quick, considering his numbers these first 2 seasons is a joke.
I know. Fullbacks began doubling up on him, didn't they, Liam? And then he sort of he couldn't really. A wee bit of pace was lost as well, but moving into the middle would be better. Because the thing is, in all, Liam, you've probably seen this. A lot of interviews that Sinclair still does to this day, he talks so fondly about his time at Celtic. He loved it here. He was such. I mean, I thought Sinclair was a great player. But yeah, moving him into the middle would have been quite a shrewd move, I think.
I think it would have been, but I don't know if Rodgers is that sort of manager. When you get that sort of success in the EPL, it's just easier to solve your problems with money and buy a player and get somebody that's already made than actually, moving people around and having those sort of insights that can make a player better like that. It's still a big gamble. I think the same can be said about, when I was watching this season again as well, we were talking about declining players. I think we prematurely again got on Michael Lustig as well. And I remember being that season as well. Oh, Lustig's done, his hip's done. I mean, he played another two seasons or so for us, right? Like through Lenny's second bit, he played on that as well. It was only Ange, I think, I got rid of him. But but when I see the highlights as well, Lustig looked quite good for us. A really good player. I think it's where we could have had a bit better management or...
This is good. This is a good debate though, Liam, because I felt the same watching the highlights, right, about Lustig, and I thought, fucking hell, was that diving header at Bustalgia and that and all this stuff. But deep down, I was like, think back to where you were, Boise, at that point. He had lost. I think San Francisco's lost his full yard of pace. I think he had. I think the highlights have maybe been kind. Maybe they've been kind to Sinclair. But I just feel that Lustig, if you were going to evolve him, could he have became a centre-back?
That's what I was hoping. Because there was always talk about...
Better than fucking iron.
I think in Sweden they'd moved him into the middle as well. And I think that would have takes a bit of, just takes a bit of like, savvy for the manager, the manager to sort of figure these things out. I don't think Rodgers was close enough. I don't think he was a football guy's manager. He was more a pretty good textbook and motivational type manager, but no addressing football needs and identifying football type things. He's going, I could change that, No, that type of guy.
Well, you lose Dembele. This is the thing. This is why I was looking at it. This is what I was trying to get my mind about this. We've started this season with Dembele, with Edward, with Griffiths. We've came out the window with Griffiths, who we know eventually will fall away at some point through the season, whether that be an unlucky injury or whether it be he can't keep up the demands. And at times, I'm sorry, since he's left Celtic, he's proven to be even a top, relatively professional football. He struggles to be fit enough. Scott Sinclair ticks all those boxes because he was an absolute model professional. I hate that terminology, but I think in his case he is. I think they missed a trick with him and going, look at these goal numbers. Okay, surely if we can see it, they can. He's not got the confidence or the same turn of pace to beat his man down the outside. And maybe he doesn't want to do the same mazy runs in the inside to score his goals. But put him in the penalty area. Will he finish? Would you back him to score? I would back him very highly. And before you know it, you're back up to 3 options up top.
Aye.
You're back up to 3. And Scott Sinclair, now you're vying with Lee Griffiths to be the number 2 striker. And at times it will be 2. Did he have the intelligence to play there? Yes. Did he have the goal record to back it up that any striker would be proud of already? Fucking right. Did he want to play for Celtic? Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
I don't know. I think it's an interesting, it's retrospectively though I've seen that. I'm not sitting there saying I ever was calling champing at the bit for that at the time. But watching it today with different set of eyes, I thought, fucking hell, that was under your nose. That he just needed modified a wee bit in what he could do in that team. And I think he could have done a very good job. He would have done better than Ollie Buck playing up top on his own. Which we've seen. Better than Mikey Johnson, who we've seen up top on his own that season.
Yep.
These are all facts.
Yep.
At times, Mikey Johnson started at Ibrox, top on his own. Scott Sinclair or Mikey Johnson up top on their own.
Scott Sinclair every day of the week.
Every day of the week.
Every day.
And do you know what? The worst bit? Scott Sinclair would have scored.
Aye. Well,
That's
the back
best bit. He would have.
Well,
so it's just an interesting, just a wee bit of revisionism.
Aye.
That one guess, he wasn't the winger he was, undoubtedly. Could he have been sort of changed. I don't know. I think it's worth a debate, that one.
Definitely makes for a good point. Something I might do in the future, because I think Scott Sinclair would be a good player to look at, because he was very pivotal through the treble treble, with all the goals that he contributed. So definitely something we can look at. Now, speaking of the Glasgow Derby, because you mentioned the Mikey Johnson play out, so let's talk about the first Glasgow Derby, because in amongst that first 8 games, well, I think we've played a bit underwhelming, but so have Rangers. Rangers have had a shocking start to the season as well. Hearts are top of the league, so they've got a wee cushion at the top. So Celtic and Rangers meet in the 4th game of the season. It's been dubbed Master versus Apprentice by the media. It really wasn't, though. Even though the scoreline said 1-0 in full time, it definitely did not give an accurate portrayal of how the game actually panned out. 1-0 going on 5 or 6. I think that's a very, very safe way to put it, because we absolutely battered them from pillar to post in that game. Alan McGregor did his bit to keep the score down, and I would say that the Rangers' goal frame was probably their man of the match, because James Forrest hits the woodwork, hits the crossbar from outside the area with an absolute screamer of an effort from 25 yards. It's dipping all the way, comes off the crossbar. A few minutes later, Mcginlay'S hits the crossbar with a header. Cham sees a shot saved in the second half by McGregor that goes up and hits the crossbar. But midway through the second half, Cham does get the goal finally. Celtic break from a counter-attack down the other end where Ryan Jack gets dispossessed. He's dwelling on the ball. Tom Rogic takes it off him. Stephen Gerrard have a wee whinge about that. We'll talk about that in a few moments. But yeah, Tom Rogic wins it. We break up the park. He's got 3 against, it's basically 4 Celtic players against 3 Rangers players. A nice bit of passing between Edward and Forrest. Forrest squares it across goal. Cham runs in at the back post and finishes it. Also, Lee Griffiths saw a shot hit the post late on, one that deflected off, I believe, Goldson, hit the outside of the post. And late on as well, McGregor also had a good save from a free kick that Griffiths hit, a knuckleball Ronaldo-style free kick where he just put his laces through it. McGregor says, as I say, Alan McGregor
battered on that day.
He did. Now, speaking of McGregor, though, Mr. Angry himself, famous incident in this one, the first of many that we've seen over the last few years. There's a free kick down at the Rangers end. The ball gets flighted in. Christopher Ayer goes for the ball, misses it, and his Ayer's on the ground, and McGregor's down there. He kicks out at him. He fucking kicks out at him and escapes punishment. As I say, first of many. I think this is also the same season where I want to say Rangers are playing Hibs in a game, and a Hibs striker stands in front of McGregor when he goes to punt it. And he goes and punts the ball and jumps up and fly kicks the Hibs player right in the lower back, and then goes down holding his leg like he's injured. And it's like, how come, like the Connor Goldson handball talk about, how come no referee or linesman ever seems to see this guy and his unhinged madness when he does shit like this all the time? But this game, of course, he kicks it to Chris Ayer, and I believe he escaped punishment for that. This was the days of the compliance officer. I think the compliance officer must have had a day off that day, because I don't remember any ban coming for that. Because yes, he clearly kicks Chris Ayer. Never a kick. Away. But yeah, that's that game. It's the first game also that's played in front of the reduced allocation. And as I say, it's a game at the end, full-time. Stephen Gerrard is doing the whole blaming the referee, something he would be doing right from day one at Rangers, because he blamed them for the drop points against Aberdeen on the opening day. And also I can remember this game as well for the lap of honour at the end. This game was one where a beautiful Sunday was played on the PA and 60,000 Celtic fans blaring it out. It was quite a moment, to say the least. It was 1-0, as I say, going on. Could have been whatever we wanted it to be that day. But in the end, it was the whole Master v Apprentice thing, Liam. It kind of flattered to deceive. The Master definitely won that day. But I'm sure they would spin it positively that, well, it was only 1-0. Still a close game there. It wasn't a close game. It was never a close game.
You could really see what an ugly, ugly side he was producing at that point.
Yeah.
Boys in that dressing room, full of like hope and optimism, but at the same time, bitterness and despair. And they managed to take a team. So it's amazing how much of that team is still playing today, for starters.
Yeah.
We're talking, 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, that's not like a huge warning sign if I was a Rangers fan,
Yep.
But, that's not something to be proud of, like they're still reshuffling the same deck of cards and trying to pull a new trick out the deck, but it's not happening. And they just got uglier and angrier. Like I think McGregor was like that all season. I remember another big high profile one against Lewis Ferguson as well, where got some bear on bear action where, trying to do a fellow young bear or one. So I don't know. And then Morelos, this was Morelos just took off the Scooby Doo mask and it became
was you all along? Oh my God,
Alfredo Morelos, Alfredo, you know, and he just went as well too, where all the referees just nobody could touch these guys. They were absolutely untouchable. They were in the mob. They were handed or whatever, and for Gerrard to come out and his first ever press conference was, we all know there's been a long history of bad calls and these calls getting against Rangers, and I want to point that out right away. And it's like, I just think, Christ, am I being gaslit? This is like something you would have on, like, you know, only an excuse or something.
Yep.
Anyway, and he set it up. He set it up for a perfect ugly guy for an ugly club. You know.
Yep. That was, and it is a damning indictment. I think that most of the players are all still there. Just shows you that they were not sellable assets at all. And the fact that Kent and Morelos' contracts are now running down, they'll walk away for nothing. They've overstayed their welcome. But that's because they don't have any suitors. That's simple. They just know going to attract the big offers.
But let's be real here, though. When you look at the fact you're talking about Morelos and Kent, now I know they're not guys we sort of pine for to be, Celtic quality and in the Celtic team. But they were obviously of a level, these guys that were brought in. That's why they've had that longevity there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this isn't a team that wins trophies, remember? They're just like, they compete well at that club.
Yeah.
That tells you how well Gerrard was back then, you know? I know Morelos was already there, but Gerrard turned Morelos into a different player, undeniably. And Ryan Kent doesn't sign for them unless Gerrard
was there.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that since then they've never had a guy in situ who had any sort of autonomy. Do you know what I mean? Mickey Beale and Gio Van Bronckhorst. And Van Bronckhorst, by the way, must be laughing. You know, he's like the one going, well, I'm not a rookie manager. The other two fucking are. The other two didn't have a fucking handful of games between them. I've got a Eredivisie. He's like, you try winning a fucking Eredivisie. It's not easy, especially when you're Feyenoord and you're the third team, really. But PSV and Ajax are probably ahead of you. So
yeah, it's
funny that a lot of the players that are still the main boys are from this season.
Aye. Well, it is. Apparently, I'm wrong as well. The Treble embarrassment to correct me and say that 16 million. Apparently, they were offered 16 million by Leo for Morelos, that one. But why did they take it then?
We thought it was wrong too, because it wasn't 16 million.
Yeah, why did you not take it then? You know, you're going to walk away for nothing. Then why would the club take
it? Stop being silly, Blue Barn. It's like we
talked about the Boyata thing at the start. It wasn't a Boyata bid in the first place.
Get real. Get fucking real. Nobody in their right mind thinks this football club turned down 16 million. Look how much debt you've just had to pay back after getting to Europa League final, qualifying for the Champions League, selling two players for £25 million, and you still had fuck all to spend. But yeah, in the midst of all that madness, we refused 16 million for a guy you're about to let go for nothing. Oh, behave. It's embarrassing to think that, right? Do you know what? Now Bob's away, it's good to have someone else to play.
There we go. So after that victory over Rangers, the first 8 games were a little bit underwhelming, but we do get our act together and Hearts begin to fall away, which is to be expected, as Celtic start to pull away at the top of the league. Now, a player would bust on the scene in the autumn because Scott Brown went down with an injury for a few weeks, but then out of nowhere, and I think when this guy's name's come up a few times, Russell, you've given me a very... Nobody cares, mate. I get the impression you're not a big Ryan Christie fan, but see, watching back that montage of goals tonight, you must admit he was fucking good in the few months of that autumn. We needed him to drag us through for that midfield. He was great.
I think it's quite interesting as well to watch someone's body language as well then. If you actually remember when we won the League Cup final, it's actually the camera zooms in on one player and he's walking on his own.
Yep.
And all he's doing, and it's so virtue signaling bullshit, right? I'm a cynical bastard, Liam, right? But it's just Ryan Christie on his own with a cup in his hand, and he's singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" back to the Celtic fans,
right?
And he's actually singing it all along as he's walking round, right? He's like, oh, it's just such a dream. I'm just like, you left for Bournemouth, mate. Bournemouth. Get that in the bin. You are the rat. See about Brendan Rodgers is a rat. What does that make you?
Oh,
Bournemouth face. Get away. I mean, playing for less crowds in Aberdeen in the Championship. Bull. I can't even bother with that shite. You know, he's just, nah. Ryan Christie came in. He did well. He won the lot. He was a raffle winner, if you want to call it that. He was told to shoot on sight by Rodgers, I think, to get with the get going. A few of them happened to hit the back of the net. He is a chancer, mate. Nowhere near Rogic's level. Nowhere near. I don't even think he was in Stuart Armstrong's level. And I think that, yeah, he had a purple patch. It was that season only. He was the wee humble kid living out his childhood dream. And then before you knew it, that was it. He got the teeth whitened, the hair done, and it was, where's the EPL, baby? Get to fuck. See you later, Ryan Christie. He still annoys me playing for Scotland when we beat Spain 2-0. He's still doing my boxing. He's got no.
I don't like Greg Taylor just because he's Ryan Christie's pal. That's how much I don't like Greg.
Wow. Tough crowd tonight.
Ryan Christie, mate, don't fall for that shite.
I thought he was good, and especially in those few months there, when after we'd had a rocky start to the season, he was phenomenal when he bust onto the scene. But yeah, obviously he'll be forever definitely tarnished with what happened in the 10 in a row season. He was don't even remind me of some of the games he put in that one.
See that silly wee bow? Well, he was like doing that wee pervy grin. He's doing like this wee mad grin. And how many teeth he got, by the way? How many teeth? Like, how many teeth can you have? He's got about 400 in there. There's like Stegosaurus he's cutting about going, you've been dipping the fossils, son. What's happening here? How many teeth can you have?
Wow.
Well, you're only meant to have egg. I don't know how many teeth you're meant to have. Do you know what I mean? I brush mine every day. Not with a whambar like fucking. Do you know what I mean? But do you know what I mean? He's cutting about with a million gnashers. He's got hundreds of them. He's just doing this silly wee. We look at him like, stop looking at. He's just a prick.
I'm surprised you could get any speed up with the ears. It was like one of the New York taxis with both the doors open. Like,
I don't like turning on your own. And I tried to be like, do you know what? History will be kind to him. History will be kind to him. History will not be kind to him and his silly wee bow and his shitey wee shots. He can fuck off.
Oh, well, I guess there's no point in talking about Ryan Christie then. This is like Judge Kearney. The judge has spoken there with past judgment on Ryan Christie. So we'll move on from him. But yeah, he did bust on the scene in that time in the sort of autumn of that season. And definitely got us through a few fixtures and did score the win on the League Cup final. But anyway, heading towards the second Glasgow derby of the season, there was a few other things as well of note. We had an absolute slobber knocker of a game up at Pittodrie on Boxing Day that ended 4-3. That, of course, is the famous game where after it, Odsonne Edouard says the top of the table line. That's the interview after that one. He scores a phenomenal goal that day, chipping the goalkeeper. Wise gets back to goal. It's like one sweeping motion and chips it over him delicately into the net. Scott Sinclair also scored a hat-trick that day. Yeah.
Celtic's number 9 scored a hat-trick. Sign him tomorrow. Sign him tomorrow. He's on free. He's going to fit Angie's system.
But yeah, he's on for him. You know, we're heading into this game against Rangers. You know, the Glasgow derby. We have got a few injuries, so it does make you think. You know, like, could he have done a job there? But no, that's not what happened. Because yeah, we go into this game against Rangers on the 29th of December at Ibrox. We are 3 points in front with a game in hand, so we're in a decent position here. But yeah, what we saw in the second meeting of the season between the teams was pretty much the mirror of the first meeting, where, you know, we were all over them at Celtic Park, but at Ibrox, we just couldn't get going at all. We were in the position that they were. They were all over us. They dominated us. You know, we just barely made a chance. Yes, a lot of people point at the team selection by Brendan Rodgers. Johnson started up front that day. Callum McGregor played at left back. Started the game. Tierney was on the bench. Agia was on the bench and Edouard was on the bench. I believe a combination of all sorts of injuries that they were carrying going into it. But yeah, we were just an absolute shambles that day. But of course, that game is also remembered as the one where John Beaton allowed certain Rangers players to basically get away with anything that day. Alfredo Morelos stood on Anthony Ralston's back That is not me making that up. That is a fact before the Blue Baron says anything in the chat. The pictures are out there where he literally just walks over him by standing on his back. He also kicked Scott Brown square between the legs. I believe he also punched Ryan Christie in the same region as well. It wasn't. And then, of course, that night, don't ask the Scottish media where John Beaton spent his evening that night, because that's one of those ones we get told, oh, just forget that, Celtic. That never happened. You're being paranoid. And it's like, well, that's that game. But everything that could go wrong that day did go wrong for us. We couldn't get started. And yeah, Rangers beat us 1-0. Ryan Jack scored the only goal. First league game they'd beat us in since 2012, I believe. Or that would have been the old club. This is a new club. So the first league game they've beaten us since they've been in the Premier League since 2016. But yeah, it was not a good day at the office, guys.
Is that the one where Gerrard ran right up to the camera at the end of the game and gave it that right in there?
Not that one. No, that was at Celtic Park.
Celtic Park.
So this one was one of those ones where I think we turned the telly off, Liam, for the first time in over a decade. We've never seen the reaction. We're like, what?
Yeah,
that feels strange. It felt bizarre. It was like, what just happened there? I didn't even know if I felt the same gutted feeling. I just kind of felt odd because do you know what I mean? What happened there? I think there was a lot of nonsense that went on. I think, in fairness, it was the only way they could beat that team.
Yeah,
they had to combat it some way. And styles make fights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those people who goes, oh, you know, you can talk about Martin O'Neill all night and say, well, we roughed them up. It was brilliant singing Bobo's going to get you. And the thing was, what they were doing was, of course, completely illegal, right? When you see, like, you know, some of the stuff Morelos did that day. Is it why we lost, though? It's as you said at the top of it, Phil. We never got going. And I think the team selection was, if I'm honest, but do you know what? If I was Brendan, I'd have been fucking worse. He's like, who are we playing up front today? Mikey Johnson will do. We beat them anyway. And it was he just didn't see it coming. Do you know what I mean? He just did not see that coming. And that was maybe there was an air of complacency when you look at the bench, albeit to take the higher one away. I think that was just good management, Phil, to be honest with you. But I think the rest of them, I look at that and I go, aye, there was a wee bit that we were that used to winning. We took more chances with our selection, the tactics that we normally did. Yes, we might not have got red cards that could have went in our favour, but it ain't why we lost. We lost to a team that, do you know what they did? It was what they always do. Blood, guts, thunder, and be in their faces. That's all their game plan was. And for whatever reason, we weren't ready for it. I believe that happened. I believe that's what happened that day. We played against Gerrard at Celtic Park where he was cutting his teeth, and whatever his tactic was then, we out-footballed him, we schooled him, right? Pedro's team against Brendan's thought they could play football against us. You know, let the best footballing team will win 99 times out of 100 if that's your tactics. Graham Murty thought he had brilliant players like Josh Windass, you know, legends like that, and we had better ones, so we were always going to win those games. Gerrard recognised, despite the investment he's made, knew his team was not as good a footballing team as level it. And by the way, it's my round at the fucking Loudon Tavern or whatever it is he's drinking after the game anyway, John Beaton, you know what I mean? And sending that Stone Island jumper before it. It's probably bought by Gerrard. But notwithstanding that, that's actually not the worst management I've ever seen. Because that is combating something that's coming your way. What do you want? A fair scrap if you're better than them? You want people to just, we'll just try and play football against. Stupid. You've got to find another way. And Celtic had not had that from that Rangers team in a long time. And what they did, it wasn't genius, it wasn't rocket science, but 100% caught us unawares, and it worked. And their press, we couldn't pass round them because maybe they were getting niggly fouls. Maybe they were breaking up the game a bit more. But if that's maybe part of the manager's tactic or design, I think sometimes you need to take a wee step back and applaud that and go, do you know what? Fair enough. That's what they had to do. We didn't have an answer for that. And the game is 90 minutes, by the way. Yeah. And I've seen Brendan Rodgers react to negative situations prior to that, i.e. the Ibrox game. This time, for whatever reason, I think the players as well, you need to remember as well, Where's your air of confidence when you're looking at Mikey Johnson up top?
Oh, no, it's just a bizarre choice.
Callum McGregor at left back. Was he not left back that night as well?
Played left back that day, yeah.
He played left. That was the first time he'd done it. So you look at these wee things. These are wee nuggets in the players' heads of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time they've had that.
I mean, these are great opportunities for a captain to show up as well. Was that no Scott Brown, the captain that day? I mean,
he was, aye.
Scott Brown gets plaudits, and I missed last week's Scott Brown show. But there's a lot of times where Scott Brown disappears where you're really expecting. It's like, now's where I could have seen you show up. Now's where you could have shown some of that maturity. Now, if we're not getting teams getting out, if we're getting out thugged here or something like that, let's have the captain rally around. Instead, he was getting broiled in wee stupid tit for tat things rather than setting an example on the park and ploughing through and getting us going. So I don't know. I mean, I've always been, I think Scott Brown did great things for us, but it was a lot of times like that where I'm not saying he's not the only one to blame, but when you've problem getting a team moving and you just can't get in the gear, I think that's the captain's job. You're the orchestra. You don't have to do it. You just have to set the pace. And I see Callum McGregor doing that more and more now that he's evolving as a player and a captain as well. That whole bit where you see him going like that, keep it going. He's understanding that we need to get at that level to play.
This was the difference, Liam, right? This game happened, it was 90 minutes of it, right?
Aye.
Whereas what we've seen under Cal Mac's captaincy is there has been times where they've done the same thing to us. Bear in mind, I'll give you a great example. It's still the best example. Was last, I think, was it April? And we beat them the 2-1 at Ibrox.
Yep.
But we could not play football the first 10 minutes. They were that in your face. There was such an intensity and energy about how they were doing it. We just couldn't kick a ball. Juranovic, remember, he couldn't string a pass. He literally could not pass the ball.
Yep.
And it's a great point, mate, because what Callum McGregor did, remember, I called it McGregor's moment at the time. A bit cheesy now when I look back. But I was trying to get likes on the channel, That was like McGregor's moment. And he just goes, fuck them, we can still play football. And he just skins 2 or 3 of them. It didn't matter if that moment led to a goal. The momentum shift had happened again. Where, do you remember who you're up against? Luckily, McGregor's ball, that was a cutback, deflected into Rogic's path and he happened to score. And that just rubber stamped it. But that bit was, I know the goals, obviously, that's the most important thing you can do in a game. But that run by McGregor, for me, was the important moment because I went, he's just shifted the momentum again.
Aye.
You've got to remember though, they're different players. Scott Brown's physicality, etc., can only work so much. But if he's one guy doing it, and they've got 11 tuned in this moment in time, in Gerrard's psyche, that he just seems to have managed to channel, it's just a moment in time sometimes it all just clicks. And I wouldn't pin that one on Scott Brown so much. I think you look at Callum McGregor playing left back, we can't give him praise in one hand and then go, well, where was he that game? Well, he's playing left back. That's the manager's call.
Yeah.
Why is Mikey Johnson up front? I've already told you Scott Sinclair's the best striker at Celtic, What's happening?
I've seen fans, and with hindsight again, or I don't know if it's necessarily hindsight, but just after all that had happened, thinking it was Rodgers trying to prove a point, because obviously the lack of investment and we're heading into the January window. It was him trying to show that, I need players. But that's a hell of a calculated risk to take if you're Brendan Rodgers. Of all the fixtures to pick, I doubt very much he would do it in that game. So for fans, I think that's born out of the ones that, call him a rat and hate him for this, that, and the next thing. I don't think he would go that far and self-sabotage himself and the team against Rangers. We're in a title race at this point in time. It was a very, very close title race at that stage. It'd be a bit mental to do that, but I have seen that as theories thrown out there, and as time has gone by, where people have said, he purposely tried to sabotage us that day to prove a point to the board, and I'm like, brave man to do that in that fixture, no chance. Can't go along with that theory at all, but I've seen it out there before, and it's like, nah, come on, you're letting your hatred of Rodgers blind you there.
Do you believe that, Leo? I mean, that's just, to me, nonsense. I think there's maybe a degree of complacency. Not to wind up the Celtic ball. The one thing you want to do, if you do have one eye on the exit door, right, is leave your stock as high as fuck. Right? You don't want to go. You don't want it to be Leicester City. In his mind, it's Man United that'll be looking at him, right? You don't want to leave with defeats to rookie managers and shitey wee teams that have not, been in the doldrums for 10 years. Of course, he's not going to want that. What point is he proving? None.
Brendan Rodgers' ego wouldn't allow that. I mean, he's a master at motivating people and all that. And you motivate people by success. And there's no way he's going to give up a chance of glory and success just to prove a point. So no, I don't think he ever did purposely handcuff us to try and prove a point, because I think he's got other ways of trying to do that. I mean, in retrospect, you can look back and he could say, "Oh, I was trying this or that," but at the time, no. I think every opportunity there to win as many points as you possibly can. And
he got things wrong.
What?
He got things wrong. That's it. And everyone gets things wrong.
What they
We all do. We all do. I mean, this is the sort of thing that where folk will say, "Oh, see, you were wrong about Aaron Moy." Well, the one thing about Aaron Moy, I was absolutely wrong. How well he'd do. I got that wrong. But Ange Postecoglou got it wrong playing him at St Mirren when he was unfit. Because you know why? He thought he knew best that day, if you want to turn it into that argument. He thought he could get away with getting a guy to play for the start against the team that are going to be up and at it against you when the guy couldn't run the length of his cell. He got that wrong. So it doesn't make him a prick, does it? No. It's just a misjudgment. That is, folks just didn't want to hear it because obviously the way Rodgers left turns every decision he made now into a different fucking lens. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I believe it too.
And they tend to be snide.
Yeah. Well, obviously the comment is on the screen right now. There's been Brown Warrior. Brendan also deployed Sinclair at right back in the game. He couldn't help himself trying to prove a point. What point was he trying to prove, though? What was he trying to prove? He just got it wrong. He just, he thought like he could play that. I don't think he was trying to prove a point to the board. Like, I need players. I'm going to sabotage us in a game against Rangers. That'd be mental if that's the point he was trying to prove. And I'm not saying that's necessarily Brownlow too, but I've seen it in Twitter and that over the years. People saying that he purposely sabotaged us that day. And it's like, are you crazy? Against them? No way. That's mental stuff to even think that. Against them? No, I can't get on board with that one at all.
Yeah, I disagree with it as well. I think, Grilla Manila was saying he was laughing as we were getting beat. I find this madness. You don't become manager of Liverpool, you don't become manager of Celtic, and if you do have a checkout on board and you've got that eyes on the prize, right? Do you know what your lasting memories at the club you're going to be at now? They're as high as possible, so the next club you're going to is as high up that ladder as possible. Because if you start making it a regular occurrence, Liam, that you're getting dodgy decisions in the team, you're chuckling away at your team getting beat, guess what? The EPL chairman don't tend to like that so much. They don't tend to go, come on down, we'll pay you $100,000 a week. It's not quite how it works. I think there's so much people looking at it through a clouded lens, not necessarily just a green tinted one, but a clouded lens because of how he left. The biggest thing will be when he comes back, and that will be the funniest time ever. I'm okay for it.
You've pushed that one a few times. You're convinced it's happening.
You're convinced
he will be back.
Back, Russell.
He will be a Celtic manager again. And do you know why? It's because maybe he has got that ego. Maybe it is because he's got the arrogance. He could handle coming back. He could handle it. And do you know what? He would get a wee bit of a hard on going, oh, you've changed your tune. So have you. Like, so have you. He could handle it. He could handle coming back. And by the way, he could do very well all over again.
I hope he's the same age as Dr. Joe when he comes back, because I want Ange to be a
because you can't slag an old man. Can't slag that old guy. He's had a great career. He was in Czechoslovakia once.
They both coached Aston Villa.
Good similar eye. But no, I just think he's one of those folk that will want to see, because he's seen the backlash since he left. I think he thought he's a master of words. I think he thought he would be able to go to Leicester and still spin us a yarn that would have everyone going, oh, you could see it from his point of view, and it didn't work. And I think he'll go, no, I want them to love me still. I really do. He'll go back one day. And by the way,
interesting.
I talk about the theory. Not the theory. The turn of phrase I like to use of having your balls tickled. I don't think he's had his balls tickled in management ever in his life. Like he's had them tickled by Celtic fans who now call him a rat. And he'll find it. I think he'll be back one day. And I think he would come back. It's just a wee bit moments in time, obviously. You know, whether Ange goes one day, of course he'll never leave.
That's how many games till he does a press conference in Japanese?
Brendan.
He's
fluent in about 5 languages, eh?
I don't know. So somebody said in the comments earlier on he is. Yep.
Pick me.
Oh my word! Imagine if.
I think one day it will happen. I'm convinced.
Well, talking about a potential comeback, let's talk about his exit then, because obviously after that defeat to Rangers, we go away on the January break. Obviously, the transfer window is open. There was talk about Timothy Castagne being on our radar, a Belgian right-back / right midfielder that played for Atalanta in Serie A, talking about 6 million transfer fees. Sounds like a good bit of investment there, the type of things you want Celtic to be doing. Did it happen? No, it certainly did not. What did we do in the January window? It was loans galore in the January window. Ollie Buck on a loan. Jeremy Toljan on a loan. We also brought in Timo Weir on a loan. And the only players that we signed were Bio from a Slovakian second division team. Might even been first division. I'm not sure. But Bio was it?
Yeah, they were second division.
Second division. Wow. And the other one, of course, was the infamous Marian Shved signing. Of course, I think Marian Shved is the only player who has gotten better with the less games he's played, because he became that guy over the next couple of years where the longer he didn't play, the better he became in social media with Celtic, saying, oh, Shved, what a baller, when he finally gets a chance. But of course, the infamous thing, one of the big red flags that was given us a clue, Liam, of what was imminently around the corner was when Shved signed, or was about to sign, after a game, I think we played, say, St Johnstone or someday. It was like a post-match interview at Celtic Park. And Brendan got asked about the imminent signing of Marian Shved, and he was kind of like, who? You know, like, I don't know why we're signing another winger. The club's got 1 million wingers already, which kind of opened our eyes, Liam, to he's not really in control of the transfers here, is he, at all? It was a worrying sign.
Well, I mean, that's it. The podcasts and the message groups and all that on fire at that point, because now all your sort of fears have started to become real. It's definitely not something happening. There's definitely something happening behind the scenes that's going to cause him to walk, you know, and that's when the rumours started circulating at that point as well. That, you know, it was very divisive group. There was people that would just not want to believe that that anything was wrong behind the scenes whatsoever, and loads of arguments and all that. I remember them within the club and all that, and people that had been on message boards and people that didn't, whatever inside knowledge or whatever they thought they had, that Brendan Rodgers was unhappy and that he'd walk away, and it was like, no chance. I'm one of the guys that says he's going nowhere. You know, what's happening?
Yep.
I look at the January window, and Brendan in the summer wanted Brendan signings. Yep. And by January, Celtic signed Celtic board signings.
Yes, he did.
Brendan didn't have any input in any of them.
No.
That's his final ultimatum to him, he'd given up, right? Was just get me a few folk for your own good, you stupid cunts. Because the one thing I can do is read the room. I can read the room, and they're all sick of you. So do yourself a favour, sign some folk, dress them up, make them out to be worldly signings, and get Jerry McCulloch to ask the same old shitey questions to him. He says, but see if you don't, when I do go, it'll look worse for you. You still got a chance to make me out to be the rat, remember? That's what Rodgers is telling them. But if you give me nothing, like it just none of them signed. None of them were Rodgers signed. The whole thing. Then by then, when you look back again, it is retrospectively. That is a joke what you're giving this guy.
Yep.
When you look between the summer, you had Edward in the first in the door. Why? Because it was agreed the summer before that.
Yes, indeed.
Since then, who have you brought into Celtic Football Club? Go through the summer ones again, Phil.
The summer ones, I'll need to scroll back up, but the
Sorry.
summer was Malumbu, Izagiri on a free transfer.
Yep. 31 years old.
Edward, obviously. Hold on, I'll scroll right back up on my old page here and find out. It was, let's see, Izagiri. Oh, we also signed Scott Bain as well. I forgot about that one. Scott Bain on a free transfer. Remember
January.
that? But we brought him in on loan. He was initially on a loan, and we made it a full-time deal in the summer window.
Right.
Mental.
So Scott Bain's been confirmed permanently.
Yeah, Scott Bain, Philip Benkovic on loan as well. Daniel Arzani on loan, who only played 20 minutes and got injured. Yeah, loans galore as well in the
loans
summer
galore.
window. Yeah.
And then you get to the January one, and we brought in Timmy Weir,
Oliver Buck, Bio and Shved were the only permanent signings.
The two permanent signings are two folk Rodgers hasn't heard of.
No.
We seem like that's okay.
Aye, it's Glasgow CC. The interview.
That's okay.
After St Mirren.
And everyone, so the managers they're at. He's signed 6-7 loan signings for a club he's generated, which I would guess would be part of his remit when he joined, guys. Right?
Yep.
See when he joined, Dyler's not made the Champions League for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So Rodgers, when he said his initial meetings, would be looking at it and going, "I've noticed a lot of loan signings recently, like at the club, like Kazim Richards, Carlton Coles. I don't want Celtic to be that." And they're going, well, that's all we can afford if you don't make the Champions League.
Yeah.
And you're going, okay. So what do I need to do? Make us Champions League consistent and we'll match your ambitions, Brendan. Well, yeah. 2 years in a row, and that's what he's been given in the following 12 months.
Oh, yeah.
That is a fucking disgrace.
Aye.
That is a disgrace when you look at those players. The January one, to be fair, I just genuinely think Rodgers has went, see if you don't sign anyone, and I know you don't want to, but more fool you. And then they've just said the Shved thing, and like he's like, what? Like I meant like someone I can play, like someone we could at least put in the hoops and like play them in a game. Oh, do you know what? Fuck you. Never heard of him, mate. Nobody cares, mate.
Exactly. That's literally what it was.
Everyone's like, Brendan, is this off the record or on the record? Nobody cares, mate. Right? That's what's happened. That window is Peter Law, and folk don't want to say it now. Well, Peter Lawwell's remember he's the non-executive chairman right now, Liam. So that means he can't do chairman. He can't do chairman stuff because he's non-executive chairman. What point was he director of football like? He seemed to be director of football long enough. Yep. That is folk will find out in time the influence he has regardless of his job title. It's so relevant, his job title. Wake up and smell the coffee. Fuck me. It's embarrassing, man. Honestly, I can't believe folk think like that window when you look at it would be something what Brendan Rodgers tried to formulate. Yeah, I want Shved, that boy Bio for Slovakian League, because he looks really like my type of player. I mean, imagine if Ange signed him. Right?
Yeah.
But suddenly only Ange knows good players. Shut up. Like, but as if Brendan Rodgers didn't have a style of play. This is all just recent history bias. You know, if we go on.
The only one that looked like that would do any damage for us would be Timo Weir. You know, and
Timo Weir looked alright. Aye, he was good.
Such a prolific player. Yeah,
I knew you'd like him because he spoke like Alistair Johnston.
He grew up in New York, right? Yeah, he grew up in New York.
Yep.
But
he had the same demeanour, eh? Just what a club, what a training facility. You see the supporters and I'm just bought in it all. Oh, that's the worst accent ever. But he was just like, he spoke all that same. I'm like, you've had that same media training as Tiger Woods, Alistair Johnston. You can see it.
He was definitely the one good thing from that January window, but
He was alright.
Jeremy Toljan and that. Oh no, let's said the bell. Ollie Buck.
Toljan, just because he's for Dortmund, he must be good.
Oh, terrible. But
yeah,
despite the Rangers' victory over us just before the January window, they come back from it, and now, of course, Rangers, this begins to set a trend of what would happen with them when we come into the second half of the season. They start off with a whopper of a result, getting beat 2-1 by Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. Jordan Jones, who I believe had actually signed a pre-contract deal with Rangers, scores a late winning goal, and I think on the same night we beat Hearts. We had a home game at Celtic Park out on the same night, so we got that wee points deficit back, the gap on them. So we had to pull a wee bit ahead. And over the next few weeks, they would drop some more silly points while we would keep winning. We obviously played that Europa League second round game against Valencia. Didn't quite go according to plan. We lost 2-0 in Glasgow and lost 1-0 out in Spain, 3-0 on aggregate, and we were knocked out. Valencia, of course, are a pretty decent side, but yeah, and then we didn't really lay a glove on them. Should have definitely done better than that tie. But out we pop out of Europe. We've only just got a domestic session we talk about, and being, a manager that wants to make an imprint on Europe. I'd imagine Brendan would have been the same, but yeah, he's out of Europe here. 3 days later, though, we play Motherwell in the league. A game which, to the outsider looking in, you would be like, Motherwell at home, just a run-of-the-mill SPL game, nothing to get excited about here. But it ended up being a game with some right needle in it, because Motherwell scored a bit of a snidey goal, which really got the fans' backs up, where Ryan Christie was down getting injured. You thought they would do the whole gentlemanly thing of giving the ball back at a throw-in. They didn't. They took a quick throw-in, broke down the park and scored an equaliser. A bit of bad blood in there, but then Celtic go on to win 4-1. Odsonne Edouard scores an unbelievable free kick in that game as well. Pings it in off the crossbar as well. Fantastic goal. But yeah, we go on and win 4-1, and it turned out that would be Brendan Rodgers' final game as manager, because the day before that, an event had happened down in England where Crystal Palace had leathered Leicester City 4-1. Thanks a lot, Big Red. Hopefully that's not the red that we're thinking about. Hopefully it's no.
No, Red Scotland, we want him on, man.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it'd be like Simon Jordan versus Eddie Hearn, right? That is what we want. Oh. We want Red Scotland on the bus. He can come bring his essays to me.
Yeah, we can. I mean, I can't read his comments because he's actually blocked me on YouTube. So I've seen people tonight saying he's had a wee pop at me in a comment. I can't see it because he's blocked me. So there you go. That's the big man that he is. He writes things about me and I can't even see it because I'm blocked on YouTube by him.
It's funny he would slag you off though, but his whole point is that he doesn't like people getting slagged off because we're all the Celtic family.
Oh, Celtic family, mate.
Make your mind up.
So if he would unblock me, that'd be really nice and I could read his nice wee comment. But unfortunately, he's
Get you a referee it, mate. Get you a referee.
Says a lot about the man. Anyway,
come on, Red Scotland. Come on the bus.
Anyway,
come
so
on,
you've done, Big Red, by comment. You've set us off now. See what you've done. But anyway, yes. So Crystal Palace beat Leicester 4-1 the day before we played Motherwell. And Claude Puel, who'd been the Leicester manager, his jacket was on a sugary peg, to say the least. And this was the final straw, and he was sacked. After the Motherwell game, rumours began surfacing that Brendan Rodgers was on his way down to Leicester, and by Tuesday morning, the 26th of February, it happened. He was officially announced as the Leicester manager. It definitely reeks of a deal that was involved a bit of tapping up, because the quick turnover suggests to me Leicester have approached him in advance and being like, when we sack this guy, are you ready to jump ship? And he's obviously gave them the word that he's going to do it, and it's all turned over really quickly. Usually when a manager gets sacked like that, it could take a good week or so before like an announcement gets made. But that was, 3 days from Saturday when Puel was sacked. Rodgers was in charge of us on the Sunday against Motherwell, and by Tuesday morning, he was now the Leicester manager. It definitely reeked had been tapped up. But again, looking with hindsight being 2020 and looking at all the things that had happened along the way, it was kind of on the card, sadly. And again, all the breadcrumbs were there. We should have seen it coming. But yeah, he's also been talking to Leicester in advance. And yes, he was now the new manager down there. And a familiar face would return at Celtic, because it just so happens, well, in the chain of events, Neil Lennon had been removed, sacked, left under whatever circumstances. It was one of these, they didn't quite disclose what happened. He left Hibs just a few weeks before, and he was ready to step in and steady the ship. One thing I want to say that's interesting about this, and it kind of ties into something we've not talked about yet on Bustalgia Russell, and we will do the 10 in a row season and talk about the darkness of that. I remember at the time when Brendan left, and naturally there was a very angry reaction, and to this day there are still many fans that are angry. I remember a hashtag that was doing the rounds on social media. It was hashtag leave it to those who are willing. I wonder if the people who were tweeting that were also posting the face of Neil Lennon with the red circle and the line through him 2 years later. I wonder, because that was a whole dig at, oh, Neil Lennon, a true Celtic man, a proper Celtic man. Leave it to those who are willing. You know, you went away for mediocrity, Brendan. I would like to know if there were fans out there that were on that boat when Lennon got announced, and 2 years later were the ones posting the red circle with the line through it. I wonder.
I think you can be both, Phil. I think you can. I thought it was fantastic when Neil Lennon was appointed, because it was like, okay, you know what? That will work. That will work for the short term, and that's all I was thinking. I was thinking about getting us to the end of that season, and then let's regroup and do what's right. We've seen what the club can do with a wee bit of a different direction, a different point of view, a bit more professionalism, and let's see what happens. By no means was Neil Lennon ever meant to be the full-time answer. And I remember that day of the cup final when he was appointed full-time. I was sick. I remember we've talked about this before, the whole pub being divided. There was people that, that's great for Neil Lennon, one of the boys and all that. But there was other of us that said, no, we've been down there before. We know what that's like. He did it was the proper appointment to get us done with the season and keep the momentum going as much as we had. And he did a great job there. And I think he'd have always been, if he'd have walked away at that point, or they had just said, we're going in a different direction, Neil Lennon would still be held in
a legendary status.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Agreed. Aye. He was the right man at that time to get us over the line, because we'd done the job before at Celtic. So to get us through the last 11 league games and a few, obviously the cup games, it was a fine appointment there. It's what he did at the end of it, but obviously we'll get to that soon. But yeah, Neil Lennon is announced as Celtic caretaker manager till the end of the season. So yeah, I was obviously saddened that Brendan had left. I wasn't angry at anything about any around it. I was just like, it happened, we just need to get on with it. If this is what the club want to do with Len at the end of the season, so be it. My first thought was Celtic just don't prove me right on this one, because my first thought was he's going to get the job full time. And I don't think that's the right answer.
I hate that argument. I hate it because it's so disparaging, right? No offence, Phil. But everyone now devalues what he did in that period of time between a club we've just admitted, and I teed you up for this perfectly, that lot of is. We've just admitted with the two shitest transfer windows we've ever seen at Celtic, full of diddies, full of players that Celtic have just signed for the sake of it, not signed by a manager, signed by a chairman. He's got a transfer window. All he can do is lose.
Mm-hmm.
If he wins, we go, meh, it was all set up for him. Set up by what? We've just all admitted it. It was the shitest two windows ever. Nothing was set up. Yeah, and he comes in, and it could have been the guys that had signed under Rodgers' remit going, who's this cunt? Right, I don't know him. I'm not interested, mate. That could have happened.
Yep.
He could not win in that situation. We pushed the big ginger button, and guess what?
Yep.
It worked. Neil Lennon came in and will never get the credit for that period of time. Should have got the job permanently. I was the same as Liam. I held it on the... So Celtic won the Scottish Cup. Me and the missus went straight to Tesco for champagne. BBC Scotland on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
There are other shitey radio stations to choose from, ladies and gentlemen. If you prefer, don't listen to any from now on. Just listen to PMP, and we'll be right there to cover all the action after the games. But in general, we would put that on if we were, if we were in the car, right, in a game. We were getting up to get the fucking champagne in. I'm not going to say it was Moe, because it wasn't, but a few bottles of bubbly to celebrate. And that, we went into Tesco, came out, and on the way home, that got announced. I remember I went, oh no. Do you know the funniest thing was? She went, I think you're wrong. I think it's right. And I was like, why? You didn't like football when I told you. She went, but the way you've spoke about him up until before he got appointed, because I'm obviously trying to give the education, she went, nah. She goes, see, from an outsider, she went, you have told me who this guy. And I'm like, fuck, she's using my own words against me.
Yeah.
And she was kind of right. She went, this guy is the king. She went, and he's just delivered the treble. And I'm like, fuck. But in general, I went, no, it won't work this time. For me, the moment it passed.
Yeah.
But what's he meant to do? Say no?
No, exactly. Aye, from his point of view. Yeah.
Oh yeah, honestly, I just love the club that much. I would say no to 600-700 grand a year. The club I love, doing the job of my dreams all over again. Shut up. Of course he was going to take it. But I think what gets lost is we jump to that bit. We jump to the showers. Not literally. I bet you all wish, but we don't. Look at that bit in between, Liam. That was... He got the job, and if you think getting the job in the showers was a joke, he got the job that morning and had to go to Tynecastle that night and win. The same day.
He did, yes.
Right?
Aye.
So let's get that right. And nobody seems to look back at that and go, that was a bit shite on Neil Lennon. Oh, no. They just erase these wee bits. It's Tynecastle now. Let's talk about Tynecastle and Neil Lennon.
Yes.
Infant of a big hat there. Pretty high. Come on. That is throwing him in the deep end at this point. You're too right when they offer him a 2-year deal. He's taking it. And good on him for taking it. It was their shite operation at the top that didn't do the job right. And Margaret, you're right. Sorry for using the C word. I apologise for that. You're right to say that. It was naughty. I apologise. She was right. Skipper was right. And I get that. And I was being a bit naughty.
You see, with Lyle on the board and that we have, like, the sharp-suited men, that's what I always... It's that lack of imagination that always lets them do. They don't have that romantic notion of football that, you can achieve anything. Like Lisbon Lions to them, that must be so foreign. That we mean, like 11 guys from Glasgow could go and do that. Peter Lyle, I think they're missing just that part of their DNA, that requires any sort of creativity for them to be at their job. And then some people act really adverse to creativity. And I think that's what those suits and numbers men happen. They're barely just hanging on with Angela right now. And that's the one thing that will always let us down. It's that archaic thinking. Like we talked about last night, like adding another 20,000 seats on because seats, money. No, we should be looking at our technical imprint and all that right now, of how we broadcast games. But, I think that's always it. It was just a signing that lacked any imagination whatsoever. And for me...
Are you talking about the summer? Liam, are you talking about when we appointed him in the summer? Are you talking about as a caretaker to get us to the end of the season?
I'm talking when they appointed him in the summer.
So you're jumping it. You're jumping. You're
right man for the job at the right time.
That's unfair, though. I think it's so... Put it this way. Do you think Brendan Rodgers would take it for those 10 weeks? And I think he's got the arrogance to do most things. I don't like anyone who rates their salt and doesn't put Celtic first, takes over from Brendan Rodgers, a messiah, for all he was he was in a no-win situation. Either do trebles, because apparently that's now the run-of-the-mill thing, or you fail at them and you leave as a fanny. And he's, by the way, he's not going, a double treble, Brendan. Here's my trophy haul at Celtic.
Yeah.
Right? As a player and a manager. Here's my other achievements in Europe. Beating Barcelona, last 16 of the Champions League, when there was no competition, apparently, remember, domestically? Well, how did we manage to do that in Europe? Up to you to decide if that makes that a bigger achievement or not. You can't win both ways. And then you go, played in Seville with a Martin O'Neill team as a player then, amongst all the trophies he won domestically then. This guy had it all to lose, Liam, to take it up over that spell. And we're talking about the 2018-19 season right now. And I think we need to look at that run of games and how we navigated that. Hearts away first game. Do you know what second game was?
Easter Road Scottish Cup game. Yep.
Scottish Cup?
Aye.
Fucking Nibba.
Yep.
This was not easy.
Aye. No,
People say he carried it. Oh, it's so frustrating. It's
Austin
so
Edwards'
frustrating.
last-minute winner at Tynecastle. I'll never forget the celebrations and Craig Levine's reaction like that. He was stunned when it went in.
It's made out that your Gran, and Tam McNam could do it. It's nonsense. And I'll tell you the one thing he did as well. I don't know if you noticed it, but remember there was Chris Davies means he's away with Brendan.
He went, yep.
Loads of the other coaching staff were. And it was just the joy of him and Damien Duff. Two Celtic men in the same trackies. These grey tracky suits I'd never seen. Yep. I think, did New Balance just make them for Lenny Ball? I don't know. But those last
Rogers always wore a suit. Rogers always suited.
And Chris Davies just looked bored as fuck and looked like he was wearing a packet of plain crisps in his face. You know, when nobody cares. See, when it was him and Duff, it was really two folk just doing it for the boys. And I agree, come this summer, he shouldn't have got it permanently. Yeah. But I think there was a massive 10 weeks in Celtic's history, because without that, there's no quadruple treble. Oh, by the way, Lennon won all those three as well, but I know everyone forgets that season too. But in that 10 weeks, he was in a no-win situation. Mm-hmm. He manned up. He took it by the bollocks, and fuck you if you think that's not right. It's disgrace. He could not win in that situation, and he did. I love it.
By the way, do you think there was another name on that list after? Do you think it was just Neil Lennon the approach, or do you think there was a backup? I think there was a backup as well, and I think the backup would have been Gordon. If it hadn't went to Neil Lennon, they would have Strachan, and that would have been completely different.
Welcome to the show. You're so right.
Aye, that wouldn't have went down as too well neither. But
would you have done it? Would you have done the same success?
No.
See, people forget about some of the optics. Do you remember that game at Tynecastle? Kieran Tierney ran up to Neil Lennon the same way.
Aye, in the end.
I would. Like it was his hero. I think deep down there was a bit of Tierney going, yes. This is who I want as my manager. I love fuck the tactics. That's my boy. I had posters of these guys on my wall as a kid. I think you could see it in him. I loved that. And I think, as I say, for some reason, everyone goes, I handed a treble by Rogers, then won another one. As if we just get them dished out like candy.
No, because he didn't like the 11 games, the league games he had to play, didn't he win all of them? See, you're saying like people go, oh, he was handed it. It's like, no, after getting the win at Tynecastle, obviously that dramatic win, as I say, the Craig Levine reaction, because I believe this is the same season where him and Levine had a bit of back and forth when he was Hibs manager and Levine was Hearts manager, where Levine went, it's just a bit of banter, isn't it? And then you get the meme where it cuts to Lennon going, I didn't find it funny. I think it's that season that this happens. There was a bit of bad blood in there between Levine and Lennon already. But yeah, when Edwards scores that goal, it cuts to the Celtic bench and Lennon and Duff pretty much running on the park celebrating. Craig Levine just standing like this. He can't believe it. He just can't believe it. We scored in the last minute. But yeah, the very next game, we actually draw 0-0 at home with Aberdeen in the next game. And then the game after, the next league game, I'm talking about the league games just now, like in terms of that, because I say the 11 league games that he had left, he didn't win all of them, he didn't get it all his own way. We played Dundee at Dens Park, and it took a 96-minute winner from Odsonne Edwards to tee us up for the next game against Rangers. And that is, of course, the game that today is the 4-year anniversary of. We beat them 2-1. The game when Morelos elbows Scott Brown, and Scott Brown was just having the banter that day. Ryan Kent obviously takes a swipe at him at the end, which ended up being printed on t-shirts and flags and banners by that lot. We're celebrating trophies. They're celebrating a player punching another one. The levels to this one are incredible. Andy Halliday has his mad meltdown, of course. That's one when Ajer, Scott Bain, and Scott Brown all kind of holding him at arm's length.
Listening shit. Was that ripped? Was that
it might have been that one. Yeah, I think it right.
I'm sure ripped halfway down. He just started laughing.
Yeah, they're all laughing right in Andy Halliday's face as he's trying to like claw them and throw punches.
See as he walks away, because I watched this in depth, right? But see as he walks away, Scott Brown's not as involved as you think. It's Lustig, right? Who's shut. Andy Halliday's got. And Scott Brown goes up to Halliday, and obviously it looks like he's patting him the back, but I do a windy jet. It's like, Halliday's one. Scott Brown's obviously doing it. Fair enough, mate. Whoa, the two biggest slaps in your back you've ever seen in your life. I thought, that's a clever way of punching him.
Yeah, that is, but it was that game. So we were well, kind of up against it in the second half. Rangers without 10 men. They kind of is pinned in for it because Boyata goes off injured and we used all our substitutes. So we were down to 10 men as well. But late on, Tavernier completely miscues a pass right into the path of Callum McGregor, plays it into Odsonne Edouard. Nice hold-up play. He just squares into the path of James Forrest, who slots it away. And I say, today is the 4-year anniversary of that game. But winning that and getting that one done put us 13 points in front. We did have a couple of games of after that where we drew with Livingston 0-0. We drew with Hibs. So a couple of games where we could have got the title wrapped up, but it dragged on a little bit. But eventually we got it done after a dramatic victory against Kilmarnock, where Siminovic scored in the 67th minute or the 68th minute, depending on who you believe, because some people, I remember people were making a big point out of this, because it was just after Billy McNeil's death. Number 5, Siminovic.
On the screen.
It says 67, whatever. To me, that's
67 on the screen.
Yeah. Aye.
Right in the stars.
And he does the celebration, he runs over, points at the number on the back and everything, and it was set us up where the next game against Aberdeen at Pittodrie, we win that, well, we've won the league, and we would go up there and win 3-0 and get the title wrapped up. Just in time, because the next game after that was actually Rangers at Ibrox, and they actually beat us 2-0, but it was a dead rubber of a game, to be fair, at that point. But yeah, we did get the title done. Lenny got us over the line. And as for the Scottish Cup, yeah, he navigated that. He got through the quarter-final tie against Hibs at Easter Road. We then went over to play the semi-final at Hampden against Aberdeen, beat them, and it was Hearts awaiting us in the final. And on a day where I felt we never really got started, we went 1-0 down early in the second half, but then Odsonne Edouard pulled us right back into it, scores a penalty kick, and then everyone will remember this, because obviously it was Mikael Lustig's last game for the club. Late on in the game, he heads the ball out of defence, and it just bounces so kindly into Odsonne Edouard's path, and he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he is not missing at that point. Liam, you're backing him all day, every day, and Big Edward slots it away, puts us 2-1 up, breaks hearts, and yeah, that was us. Treble Treble was secured. Neil Lennon got us over the line, and yeah, I'd say then the interview did happen with Peter Lawwell on the TV, where he obviously announced we didn't even look at anybody else's CVs and the whole shower thing, you know, that we've offered them the job. But yeah, that's another story for when we cover the next season that comes after this one. But at that point in time, Treble Treble, a very small, unique collection of teams, collection of clubs have won a Treble Treble in world football. History makers, we're up there, Liam. History makers, regardless of what the standard of the league is, end of the day, you know, very few teams have been able to do that in their own league. So yeah, what a moment.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought the marketing, the way the club marketed it, was really good. It was good to see the club actively going out there. Like, the graphics looked cool. You know, the whole thing, Treble Treble. I'm a big Bowie fan. So, you know, just wanted to celebrate it. I just wish we could have celebrated that day a wee bit longer. That's all. You know, Peter had to show up and show us, like, hey, look who I'm still about. You know, I'm relevant. Look at me. I'm doing stuff. I'm handing out contracts. Bullshit. You should have just fucking relaxed. Enjoy the day with everybody else. And then in a clear head, then make a decision. Then make the announcement or whatever it was. But it just seemed rushed. And it seemed bad business acumen to be doing something on an emotional level when we're being told to, you know, put your emotions aside. This is Celtic. We have to be frugal. We need to balance the books and all that. Don't get carried away with your emotions. But when he gets emotional and can hand out contracts like that, oh, it's okay. Good on you, Peter. Didn't even look at anybody else. No, that's an emotional decision. No, so I think that told us a lot about Peter Lowell that day. It's like he's got a rule for himself and a rule for everybody else.
Aye, true. Very, very true.
Here's the fucking difference between two narratives of two clubs. Both took over mid-season. One was in charge the majority of league games and will not take the flack for not winning it. He will be given a pass. The other one takes over less of the games but wins the league and gets given zero credibility. Both play in latter stages of the League Cup. Both have full Scottish Cup runs near enough. Another one will be given a pass. The other one given zero credibility. Tell me which one's won what. Then when you start seeing the difference between the two, you realise who is still always on the wrong end of the judgment and the treatment. And when you see we fannies getting so much credit for a hell of a lot more wrongdoing. Or not wrongdoing, but you know what I mean, just being shite.
Yeah.
You look in contrast and compare the two.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Beale had a real run at this league title where he could influence it, including 3 out of 4 derbies. He's not closed the gap, it's got bigger.
Mm-hmm. But remember, he's the one that comes in and says, "Oh, I inherited the gap," and it's like, "Hey, but you've had a chance to narrow it. You played us at Ibrox and couldn't beat us on what was seemingly a bad day for us. So, you know, couldn't beat us in the League Cup final. So you've had your chances to get one over as Mickey
League
Beale.
Cup final, Scottish Cup run. They're both in charge of the majority of those games, if not all of them.
Aye.
One of them won them, and yet one of them looks like he's been gifted them. The other one seems to get abstained. Oh, it's not your fault. It's nothing to do with you.
No, it's
funny
not.
That. And yet he had a transfer window. Lennon didn't have a transfer window.
No, that's right.
So
I comes in
funny
February.
The difference is who it just depends if your face fits. Neil Lennon's face doesn't fit.
No,
that's the difference between the two.
It's been a problem for years with the media in this country, and unfortunately continues to this
Brilliant
day. But
comparison, though.
It is a very good comparison.
I was watching it today going,
similarities
totally forget that. It's drives me crazy.
But that is the treble season. I think Pam said earlier on, looks like we're going to midnight tonight. I knew this would be a long show. This one's got a lot to debate, a lot to talk about. So I knew this was going to be a 3-hour show, and we're coming up.
I'm still waiting to go for last orders at the pub because it's just
But yeah, it's been an event. You enjoyed yourself tonight, guys?
Not really. I feel like I'm fucking raging.
Amped up now.
It's a mad season.
We will obviously be talking about the next season at some point in the near future. That is still one that we need to do, and that's one again that people will forget about. We had a very good European run, topping a group that had a Serie A team in it, Lazio, beating them home and away. You know, we talk about Celtic's like mediocre European form, and it's like in between Brendan Rodgers and Ange, we had Neil Lennon, who somehow found a way to beat pretty decent European teams. So it's like, this team's capable. You know, Celtic are capable in this day and age of competing in Europe. So we'll be talking about that at some point as well. But yeah, that's the treble season wrapped up for the night. So before we go, a wee bit of house cleaning. I'll check how the poll went, because obviously I asked at the start of the show, what was people's reactions when Peter Lawwell did give that news after the cup final? So let's see what they've came out with. Let's see what we've got. We've got 100 votes on it. So we have got, very, very close between indifferent and angry. Angry's got 43%, indifferent 41%, delighted 16%. I fell in the indifferent category. I said when he was appointed as caretaker, and even when he was appointed as full-time manager, I was like, well, if this is the way the club want to go, so be it. We just get on with it. We just go with it. And but I say we will talk about the next seasons that follow in due course and what happened. And of course, before we go as well, we'll do a quick trivia. We'll just recap it. It was to do with our fixtures with Rosenborg. So I was looking for was the 5 goal scorers against Rosenborg over those 6 games in 18 months. And for a bonus point, if you can tell me the Rosenborg goal scorer, who you'll definitely remember this player, then go for it. So yeah, that's the 5 answers that I'm looking for.
Lee Griffiths.
Griff, yep.
Can't remember any of the rest.
Eddie.
Edward scored, yep. Edward did, yep.
Seems a good guess.
Who else?
James Forrest.
James Forrest, yep. He scored in the season before away, yep.
Callum McGregor.
Well, I mean, if I was going to include the Champions League ones for the start of the century, then I guess he would count.
Keep going, Liam. Keep going. We're nearly there.
Callum McGregor. No.
No, Callum McGregor, no. One who got a lot of praise tonight, Russell. You were praising a player very, very highly tonight.
Scott Sinclair.
Number 9 scored. And one more from the qualifying game at the start of the season. It was a really good goal from outside the area as well. Bent it in with his right foot. A midfielder.
Armstrong. Stuart Armstrong.
Christie.
Nope, not Christie. Not Armstrong. He was away at that point.
I didn't think it would be Christie, really. I was just saying that. I thought you were trying to wind me up. Fuck knows, man.
Olivia Ncham.
Oh, yeah, I can see the goal. That was actual peach.
And do you remember the Rosenborg goal scorer? Because a lot of people wanted us to sign him.
Mealing.
Yes, Birger Merling, the left back, the wee blonde left back.
Right, I'm going to the pub. I'm away.
Okay.
Right, I need to go. Bye. That was amazing, Phil. He's the man. I'll be back tomorrow. Weekend. You tell the rest. Bye,
I'll
bye.
do the rest. Right, see ya. Bye.
Cheerio.
Yeah, I'll wrap up the show. But yeah, there you go. Berger Mellon. I remember people saying, "Oh, we should sign him. He's cracking him." That left back. He was really good actually. But I think he ended up playing in France or Germany. I think he transferred there. But yeah, he was a decent wee player, that boy. But yeah, that wraps up the show. As Russell says, obviously the fight come up over the weekend. We will have the Sunday Blair. I was going to say Sunday brunch there. Sunday Blair. That's coming up. That'll be the work as a pre-show, essentially, at the Ross County game. Obviously, Celtic are playing Ross County back in domestic action on Sunday lunchtime. And yeah, afterwards it'll be PMP. And then, it's another week rolls around again. So we're doing a bit of reshuffling at the moment. With shows, I think the Monday Club is now essentially a Monday afternoon show after what we did last week. So I think that's the plan. And then on Tuesday, Russell and Jonathan will do their sort of nighttime show now, so we still haven't thought of a name for that one yet. We'll come up with something, I'm sure. But yeah, Liam, that's us done for another week. Next week, when we do Bustalgia, it's of course on the eve of a Celtic Rangers game, so I know from previous experience to try and make the subject matter about Celtic and Rangers fixtures. So I'm going to get my thinking cap on and come up with something there we can look at regarding the fixture, because on a weekend, a Celtic Rangers game, that's what everyone wants to talk about. So next week, we'll come back with something to do with Celtic Rangers. And yeah, that's us. So we're off ski. So Liam, enjoyed yourself tonight?
I do. And then just before we go, Phil, I want to send a shout out for all the love for everybody in the bus to our bus pals, Regan Stevenson. It's not doing too well right now. So
indeed,
thought get behind and show our Regs a bit of support. I'm sure he'd love that. Yeah,
shout out to Regan. Hopefully he'll be fighting fit to be on the Sunday Blair, fingers crossed. But yeah, he sent us a message in the group chat that he's not doing too. So, thoughts with Regan right now. So he's a good lad, Regan, very good lad. So good shout out to him. And we shall head off now, Liam. So yeah, this bus is head off 3 hours and 15 seconds. My God, we've obviously done a 3-hour show, but there you go. We made it to midnight. Monty will be happy. We finally hit midnight on a show. He's been asking for a while. So there you go, Monty. That was for you, mate. Right, we'll catch you later, folks. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you all on Sunday.
When you've all that stuff at the start, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.